Chapter 290. Feeling happy. Feng Zichen's whole body was filled with a kind of joyful mood. Even his hurried steps were a little lighter. Unfortunately, his joy did not last long. He was interrupted by a figure in front of him. It was a young man. He was handsome and unparalleled. His eyes were filled with arrogance. It was as if no one in the world was worthy of his attention. He was wearing a golden feather robe with a golden crow embroidered on it. It was shining brightly, and his body was filled with the majestic aura of an emperor. He was extremely noble. Tai. The moment he saw this person, the two words Tai naturally appeared in Feng Zichen's heart. The name Tai had an extraordinary meaning in the primordial world. He represented the peak of the primordial world, the most noble of the gods. Only one person could be called that. Then, the identity of the person in front of him was about to be revealed. Eastern Emperor Tai. The person who came was actually Eastern Emperor Tai. Tai stood there quietly, motionless. There was no aura on his body, and he looked ordinary. However, in Feng Zichen's eyes, he seemed to have become the center of everything. Heaven and earth, the great path, the rules, and everything in the world were revolving around him. He was incomparably great and shocking. He was as dazzling as the sun, making it impossible to look directly at him. One could only look up. He was Tai, the number one in the primordial world. Sword ancestor, or a wizard. Just as Feng Zichen was shocked, Tai spoke. His voice was not loud, but it gave Feng Zichen a great sense of oppression. It was as if heaven and earth were pressing down on him at the same time, almost suffocating him. Tai was here to settle the score. The reason why the wizard race's strength had increased greatly was discovered by the demon race. Was he here to kill him? Bang, 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 bang. At this moment, Feng Zichen's heart began to beat violently. The long-awaited crisis of death suddenly struck his heart, causing his forehead to be instantly covered in cold sweat. Danger. Extreme danger. This was the greatest danger Feng Zichen had encountered since his debut. If he was not careful, he would die, touching the sorcerer token in his arms. Feng Zichen immediately wanted to activate it so that he could return to the Panga Hall and escape this crisis. But after thinking about it, he gave up. Even if they escaped back to Panga Palace, what could they do? Unless he could hide in the Panga Palace for the rest of his life, he would have to face Tai sooner or later. But could he stay in the Panga Hall forever? Obviously they couldn't. The human race was still waiting for him. As for asking for help, that was unrealistic. No one could protect him forever. If he wanted to live, he could only rely on himself. What brings your majesty, Dong Huang, here? Feng Zichen asked Tai after forcing himself to calm down. Feng Zichen did not believe that Tai would dare to kill him. He was now heavily favored by the heavens. If he killed him, there would be endless karma. Tai could bear this price, but the demons could not. If the demons, who were already weak, were to be tainted with this karma, they would have no hope of winning the next great war between the witches and demons. You are very good. Tai did not answer Feng Zichen's question. Instead, he nodded and praised him. Tai's praise came from the bottom of his heart. Feng Zichen had reached this step with his acquired body. His experience could be said to be legendary. Outsiders could not help but admire him. Don't worry, I'm not here to kill you today. I just want to see what the primordial sword ancestor, the wizard of the witch race who has stirred up the primordial world, secretly plotted for the witch race, and caused a headache for the demon race, looks like. Although I really want to kill you, the current heavenly court cannot bear the price. Therefore, before you lose the favor of the heavens, you are extremely safe. As if he could see Feng Zichen's nervousness, Dong Huang Tai said with a smile. He did not hide his intentions at all. His words showed that he wanted to kill Feng Zichen. It was just that he did not dare to make a move because he was concerned about the heavenly court. Phew! Hearing Tai's words, Feng Zichen could not help but heave a sigh of relief and relax. no matter what Tai's attitude was, as long as he was not here to kill him now. As for the future, Tai would not have a chance. At that time, it would be Feng Zichen's turn to dominate the primordial world. The power of the Donghuang today was the true portrayal of his future. At the same time, Feng Zichen felt relieved. It turned out that he had done so many things unknowingly. He could already affect the general trend of the primordial world. Your Majesty, have you seen it? If there's nothing else, the poor Wei will take my leave first. Feng Zichen bowed to Tai and said, after returning to his normal state of mind, the arrogance that belonged to him came back. After this incident, he had become stronger. Sigh, what a pity. Such a talent was not born in the demon race. What a pity. Tai shook his head and sighed. Feng Zichen had already used practical actions to prove his wisdom and talent to all living beings in the primordial world. It might be an exaggeration to say that he was the best in the primordial world, but there were still top 10. If Feng Zichen had been born in the demon race, the heavenly court would have long unified the primordial world. The Magi would not have been able to do anything. Unfortunately, such an earth-shaking figure was born in the human race. Fate was really playing tricks on people. Shallow water could not raise a true dragon. The human race was shallow water. They were not worthy of Feng Zichen, the true dragon. They would only drag him down and delay his development. The primordial world was the place where Feng Zichen could develop his ambitions. This was not Tai's personal opinion, but the unanimous opinion of all the great divine abilities of the primordial world. All right, since I'm here, it won't make sense if I don't leave something on you. I'll give you a chance to make 3 moves. As long as you can shake me, I'll let you go. Otherwise, you can go to the boundless void and wander for 1,000,000 years. Come, show me what you can do. Amaze me. After sighing for a while, Tai suddenly said, not being able to kill Feng Zichen did not mean that he could not seal him. Tai controlled the bell of chaos and could suppress endless time and space. It was not difficult to seal Feng Zichen for a period of time. It could be done easily. However, Tai still had his own pride. He could not attack Feng Zichen with all his might, giving him a chance. As long as Feng Zichen could shake him in 3 moves, so what if he let him go? If he could not shake him, then don't blame him. Then, poor Wei, sorry to offend you. Taking a deep breath, Feng Zichen's face was solemn. Now, no one would come to help him. Tai had come here personally. How could he not shield the heavenly secrets? With Tai and the bell of chaos, even a saint would not be able to figure out what was going on here. Therefore, Feng Zichen could only rely on himself and the sword in his hand. Sword, come. He clenched his right hand and Zichen's sword appeared. Immediately, boundless sword intent swept in all directions. It was vast and mighty, shattering the surrounding void into pieces. Chapter 291. Knowing how powerful Tai was, Feng Zichen used all his strength as soon as he attacked. In the depths of his sea of consciousness, the human emperor's seal suddenly emitted a bright light. Vast and endless power poured out and poured into Feng Zichen's body, raising his strength to the realm of sage-to-be perfection in an instant. Merit. In Tai's eyes, a large amount of merit suddenly surged out of Feng Zichen's body, temporarily raising his strength to the realm of sage-to-be perfection. He had the ability to fight against him. Although Tai was strong, he had not completely stepped into the realm of primordial chaos. He had only taken half a step. Naturally, he could not see through the concealment of the human emperor's seal, and there was a deviation in his understanding. Of course, this was also because Tai was conceited and did not use the bell of chaos. Otherwise, the concealment of the human emperor's seal might not be able to stop Tai. At that time, Tai, who had discovered Feng Zichen's secret, would not be so easy to talk to. It was impossible to predict what he would do. Your Majesty, sorry. With a loud roar, Feng Zichen swung his sword. Rumble. Dazzling sword light burst out, boundless, and swept toward Tai with the power of 3 talents. In the sword light, there were 3 lights: water, fire, and wind surging. There was the birth and death of essence, chi, and spirit. These were the 3 treasures of heaven, earth, and man, the manifestation of the Tao of 3 talents. This sword was the tripartite Sword Sutra. In front of Tai, Feng Zichen did not dare to use his ultimate skill. Zhouxing, Sword Sutra. Wasn't that courting death? Therefore, Feng Zichen could not use anything about the Tao of Stars. Fortunately, he was the ancestor of the Tao of Sword. No one in the primordial world could compare to his comprehension of the Tao of Sword. The Zhouxing Sword Sutra was not the only supreme sword technique. The tripartite Sword Sutra was one of them. Under the tripartite Sword Sutra, all order was in chaos. Yin and yang were reversed, and the 5 elements were out of balance, causing the void to shatter and the laws to be destroyed. Boundless destructive aura surged out. Not bad. Looking at the surging sword light, Tai bowed his head slightly to express his admiration. Then Tai clenched his fist, and the divine light of the sun shone down, turning into a golden divine sword in his hand. In an instant, a shocking sword intent erupted from Tai's body. It was extremely sharp and domineering. The Emperor's aura was vast and mighty. In the past, Tai was not proficient in the way of the sword. However, the moment he picked up the sword, everything about the connate way of the sword appeared before his eyes, allowing him to naturally comprehend the way of the sword. In just one breath, Tai had proven his Tao and attained the connate sword Tao. Mastering one technique would lead to mastery of all techniques. This was how it worked. Slash! Tai shouted and swung his sword. Whoosh! Dazzling light erupted, even more resplendent than the sun's radiance, even more dazzling, illuminating the heavens and the universe. Heaven and earth were covered in a vast expanse of white, nothing visible. Under the illumination of this light, the 3 sword lights were like white snow, constantly melting. In an instant, they were completely evaporated. This sword attack that contained Feng Zichen's full strength did not cause any waves at all. It was destroyed by Tai just like that. Then the sword light did not slow down and continued to attack Feng Zichen. A half-step chaotic prime expert was half a step into the threshold of transcendence. His essence had changed, and he was far from what a pre-saint could compare to. Even if 10 pre-saint perfection experts attacked together, they might not be able to defeat Tai. Moreover, Feng Zichen's great perfection of sage to be was a fake. It was even more impossible for him to win. The sword light attacked with oppressive pressure, making people tremble in fear. However, Feng Zichen's expression did not change. He was awe-inspiring and fearless. It was true that that sword was his most powerful attack, but it was not his most powerful technique. He still had other trump cards. He shook his hand, and the deafening sound of 10,000 swords rang out. It was the 10,000 sword illustration that flew out and spread out in the void. The 10,000 sword illustration was a supreme grade, connate spiritual treasure and the number 1 treasure of Sword Tao. It was unparalleled in killing. As soon as it appeared, countless sword wills rose in the void, forming countless divine sword phantoms. They were densely packed and endless, densely covering the entire void. These divine swords were of different shapes and sizes, but they all had one thing in common, which was that they were extremely powerful. The sharp sword wills surged, and a terrifying aura rose. The sharpness pointed directly at the incoming sword light. However, Feng Zichen did not attack immediately. Instead, he pointed at the 10,000 sword illustration. Go! The 10,000 sword illustration first vibrated, then suddenly rolled toward Zichen's sword, wrapping it up. For a moment, the power of Zichen's sword increased greatly. The sword light soared more than 100 times. Endless sharpness filled the air, shattering everything around it. The beginning of the sword, the unification of 10,000 Tao. Feng Zichen shouted, and Zichen's sword swept out. This was the highest achievement of the innate sword Tao. Using the sword Tao to derive 10,000 Taos, it was the upgraded version of one sword to 10,000 arts. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook. 10,000 Tao descended and blessed the countless divine swords, making them sublimate. They interweaved with Tao and truth, transforming into Tao swords. One Tao gave birth to 10,000 Taos. The Tao was boundless, the Tao was endless, and the power was endless. The Tao was vast and mighty. In the blink of an eye, Tai's sword light was drowned and destroyed. Then it continued to attack Tai. Not bad. Tai chuckled and then moved. He slowly raised his right hand, bent his finger slightly, and flicked it forward. In an instant, heaven and earth changed. Time and space were distorted, and the 10,000 Taos changed. Yin and Yang and the 5 elements became chaotic. All concepts were blurred, and the past knowledge was deviated. It no longer made sense. Feng Zichen's sword light disappeared without a sound. It was so sudden that it seemed as if it had never been there. You still have a chance to make one move. Tai glanced at Feng Zichen and said, at this moment, Feng Zichen truly felt the power of the peak of the primitive world. Daluo Jingxian and Sage to Be were still fighting on the superficial level of Tao. As for primordial chaos experts, they had already reached the deeper level of Tao and began to deal with the power of concepts. How terrifying was it to distort the opponent's knowledge in terms of concepts? Imagine a primordial chaos expert denied everything about you in terms of concepts, making all your previous knowledge invalid. For example, East was no longer East, and West was no longer West. The sword in your hand was no longer a sword, but a saber, a spear, or something else. It could be anything, an existence that was different from your knowledge. How could he fight like this? Fortunately, Tai was not a real primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, but a half-step Daluo Jingxian. He was not an invincible existence. He still had a chance. Holding the Zichen sword, Feng Zichen's aura suddenly changed greatly. A majestic aura filled the air, and the will of the heaven-opening path surged out. All the distorted concepts returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Visualizing the scene when Pangu opened the sky, Feng Zichen held the Zichen sword tightly. At the same time, all his experiences so far appeared in his mind. For a moment, all kinds of emotions surged in his heart. Happiness, anger, sorrow, joy, bitterness, and so on. However, these emotions were soon replaced by a firm determination to pursue the Tao. Chapter 292. Of all the things in the world, only the Tao was eternal. Feng Zichen wanted to reach the peak of the Tao and see all the scenery in the world. No one could stop him. Therefore, he could not be trapped here. Kill! With this thought in mind, Feng Zichen attacked with his sword. The sword light was resplendent, like the first ray of light in the world, shining through all the darkness. This sword strike gathered everything of Feng Zichen. It was the strongest sword strike he could unleash at the moment, a sword strike that could split the world. What was split was the sky that belonged to him. What was split was the land that belonged to him. This sword strike confirmed his desire to pursue the Tao. This sword strike also represented Feng Zichen's determination. He wanted to open up a world that belonged to him in the primordial world. Pangu's principle of splitting the sky, coupled with all his Tao comprehensions, finally achieved his strongest sword strike. When this sword was unleashed, it surpassed everything. Rumble. The world was rumbling, and the great Tao was trembling. Wherever the sword light passed, it was as if it was going to split the world apart. Countless principles and endless creation were born, shattering all the known existences. This sword strike carried Feng Zichen's belief that it could surpass everything and slashed fiercely at Dong Huang Tai. This is what the primordial sword ancestor should be like. Facing this sword strike, even Tai could not help but be a little moved. A wisp of golden light gathered behind his head, growing larger and larger, enveloping him and protecting him. At this moment, Tai did not want to make a move. This sword strike had stunned him. He wanted to know how powerful this sword strike was and whether it could make him retreat. With the help of the heaven-splitting Tao, Feng Zichen barely possessed a trace of primordial chaos power. He had mastered the power of concept and could pose a threat to Tai. The sword light arrived in the blink of an eye. It ignored all space-time and all concepts and directly slashed at the golden light curtain. Boom! In an instant, the world suddenly fell silent and fell into silence. Then a shocking explosion sounded. Terrifying power overflowed and shook the entire primordial world. Such an intense commotion caused Tai's concealment to be completely useless. Countless powerful cultivators were alarmed and looked in their direction. That's Tai and Sword Ancestor. Why are they fighting? How could the Sword Ancestor be a match for Tai? He's in trouble now. Recognizing the origins of these two people, the great divine ability users were astonished. However, this was nothing. Both of them were famous people in the untainted land. One of them was the number one in the untainted land in the past, while the other was a figure in the limelight today. The sudden fight between the two of them had aroused the great interest of everyone, regardless of the reason. They were also happy to watch the fun. However, in the Panga Hall, the 12 ancestors of sorcery saw this scene and their expressions changed greatly. They hurriedly ran to the place where the incident happened. Crack! Crack! The golden light screen that enveloped Tai began to crumble inch by inch. In an instant, it turned into a sky full of light and disappeared. It could be seen that although Tai was not injured under the strong impact of the sword light, he took half a step back. This half step was enough to explain everything. According to Tai, as long as Feng Zichen could shake him, he would let Feng Zichen leave. Now Feng Zichen had done it. You can leave now. After a moment of silence, Tai said. Tai was not a person who went back on his word. Puff! Feng Zichen opened his mouth to say something, but as soon as he opened his mouth, the blood in his body surged, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. This was the price he had to pay for slashing out with the sword just now. His cultivation was only at the late stage of Daluo Jinxian, but he had forced Tai, who was half a step into the primordial chaos, to retreat. This was in exchange for his life. Now, Feng Zichen only felt that his limbs were weak and his body was burning with pain. His blood was boiling, and there was not a trace of magic power left in his body. That sword slash had drained him of everything, far exceeding the limit he could bear. It had caused him great damage, and even moving was extremely difficult. Thank you, Your Majesty. After trying for a while, Feng Zichen forced a smile and said to Tai. After this, Feng Zichen's heart to pursue the Tao was even more determined. What Tai had shown today he would be able to do tomorrow or even stronger. Today's encounter made Feng Zichen understand a principle. In the primordial world, if one wanted to live peacefully, it was not enough to be strong. One had to be stronger. Only by being absolutely strong and making everyone feel like they were a mountain would no one dare to provoke them. Just like the current Tai, he would never allow today's matter to repeat itself in the future. In the future, he would attain the Tao, stand shoulder to shoulder with the saints, and be the number one in the primordial world. Today's grudge would be resolved in the future. As for Tai dying in the witch demon tribulation, Feng Zichen did not believe it. Only after experiencing Tai's strength personally would one understand how terrifying he was. Feng Zichen did not believe that such a person would die so easily. Even an ordinary Daluo Jinxian knew to leave behind a backup plan to revive or open several aliases in a row. These characters would definitely leave behind more backup plans, and they would be beyond imagination. Perhaps in the witch-demon tribulation, there might not be many great divine abilities that had truly fallen. It was far from as many as in the legends. The so-called fall was most likely just a change of character. They would continue to be active in the primordial world with another identity and not be known by the world. After all, as long as they did not admit it, who could suppress a great divine ability and forcefully investigate? If they made a mistake, wouldn't they have a personal grudge? The more he thought about it, the more certain Feng Zichen was of his guess. After coming to the primordial world for so long, he deeply realized that the legends of the future could only be used as a reference and could not be believed. That was because one would never be able to guess whether the legend was true or false. Since the end of the primordial era, the ones who truly dominated the primordial world had always been the Khanate god-fiends. Even if the era changed, the world changed, and the sea changed, this point had never changed. It had always been the same. Therefore, the so-called legends of the future might be somewhat true, but the images of the characters might not be true as in the legends. The truth hidden in the legends had long been hidden by the mighty figures who were still alive. What could be spread out was what they wanted people to know. It had long been changed beyond recognition, and what they did not want people to know, it was really unknown. Tai, how dare you? The void beside Feng Zichen suddenly changed. Di Jiang walked out of it. He first supported him, then pointed at Tai and scolded him. However, before Di Jiang could scold him, he saw Tai's figure slowly dissipate. He had returned to the sun. You! Being ignored by Tai, Di Jiang was furious. He grabbed at the void and was about to pull Tai back. Don't doubt that as the ruler of space he had the ability. Forget it. At this moment, Feng Zichen tried to persuade him. Chapter 293. Even if Tai was brought back, what could Di Jiang do? If Tai did not have the Bell of Chaos, it was hard to say who would win in the battle between Di Jiang and him. However, facing Tai with the Bell of Chaos, Di Jiang alone had no chance of winning. Now that he had brought Tai back, he had no other choice but to humiliate himself. The Bell of Chaos, a Khanate merit treasure, was one of the 3 strongest treasures in the primordial world. Its greatest ability was to suppress endless time and space, which happened to be Di Jiang's nemesis. Therefore, Di Jiang was naturally at a disadvantage when facing Tai. It was impossible to defeat him. Sai, forget it. I'll deal with him in the future. Di Jiang could not think of what Feng Zichen could think of. He sighed helplessly and withdrew his raised hand. Fellow Daoist, follow me back to the Pangu Palace to heal your injuries. Your injury is really too serious. If you drag it on, I'm afraid you'll hurt your Dao body. Di Jiang said worriedly after discovering the situation in Feng Zichen's body. It was not a good thing to push the body to its limits. Although he would be able to temporarily obtain great power, the repercussions that would be left behind would be incomparably serious. It would damage his foundation. If Feng Zichen's foundation was damaged, his Pangu Dao body would definitely be affected. He might not be able to see anything now, but when he took a step closer, it would be difficult. It would become an obstacle for him to break through, and he would not be able to achieve fusion. That was why Di Jiang was so worried. Moreover, Feng Zichen was a wizard of the wizard tribe. He had just become a wizard not long ago and had just left the wizard tribe. If he was crippled just like that, the wizard tribe would really become a joke in the primordial world. It's fine. Ancestral Wizard can send me to the human race. Shaking his head, Feng Zichen said, but he did not want to go to the Pangu Palace. He knew his own situation very well. Although it was indeed serious, it was still under his control. It was not as serious as Di Jiang thought. After the battle just now, I've gained some enlightenment and am about to make another breakthrough. This injury is nothing. What's more, Her Highness Niwa is always paying attention to the human race. Even if I can't suppress my injuries With Her Highness around, there won't be any problems. These injuries are nothing in front of Her Highness." Seeing that Dijiang still wanted to say something, Feng Zichen interrupted him without waiting for him to speak. "What you said makes sense. Fellow Taoist Nuwa achieved the Tao through creation. Her achievements in the Tao of creation are unparalleled in the untainted land. You are indeed more suitable in his eyes than in my witch tribe." Even Dijiang had to admit that Nuwa was powerful. He had already seen the mysteries of the path of creation from Hutu. Presumably, Nuwa, who had a deeper understanding of the creation Tao than Hutu, would be more powerful. "If that's the case, I'll be sending you back to the human race." As he spoke, Dijiang waved his hand, and the surrounding environment suddenly changed. When Feng Zichen looked again, he found that they had already arrived outside the human ancestral temple. Looking at the human ancestral temple in front of him, Feng Zichen was speechless for a moment. He had long heard that Dijiang was the fastest in the untainted land. Today he had seen it for himself. If it were him, it would take at least a few years for him to return to the human race. However, Dijiang only used a breath to bring him back to the human race. The gap was really big. Moreover, what was even more surprising was that the enchantment that Nuwa had set up above the human territory was useless in front of Dijiang. Just like that, he brought Feng Zichen across the void and walked in without causing the slightest ripple. This meant that as long as Dijiang wanted to, he could destroy the entire human race in an instant. Even Nuwa couldn't stop him in time. The Space Dominator was really terrifying. Fellow Taoist's divine ability is really enviable. After coming back to his senses, Feng Zichen said with slight envy. He had once deduced the great Tao of time and space with Zhouxing. Therefore, the divine ability that Dijiang was displaying at this moment was what he was working hard to pursue. The method that he had dreamed of had become reality for someone else. How could he not be envious? Haha, this is just a small trick. It's really nothing. When your cultivation takes a step further, you will naturally understand. Seeing the envy in Feng Zichen's eyes, Dijiang said with a smile. Manipulating space was just an instinct for Dijiang. It was as simple as eating and drinking. Therefore, he naturally wouldn't understand the frustration of an outsider comprehending the Tao of space. "Fellow Taoist, do you want to go to the human ancestral temple?" Pointing at the ancestral temple, Feng Zichen invited him. "No, the witch clan still has important matters waiting for me to deal with. I won't be here and disturb your recovery." Shaking his head, Dijiang refused. In the human ancestral temple, Nuwa was enshrined. If Dijiang went in, he would inevitably meet Nuwa, which would be awkward. After all, Nuwa's brother was the great enemy of the witch clan, Emperor Shi, one of the 3 emperors of the demon clan, Fushi. Not long ago, the witch clan almost killed him. It could be seen that the relationship between the witch clan and Nuwa was not very friendly. Therefore, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble and make things difficult for Feng Zichen, Dijiang didn't plan to go in. Also, if you need anything in the future, just ask the witch clan or let the clansmen do it. Don't be afraid of trouble. After all, we are a family. If we continue to be polite, it will seem distant. Dijiang, who was about to leave, suddenly stopped and said to Feng Zichen, as a wizard recognized by Pango, Feng Zichen had power second only to the ancestral wizard in the witch clan. Dijiang said, this was the treatment he deserved. Zichen understands. Nodding, Feng Zichen indicated that he understood. At this point, he was already involved with the witch clan, so he didn't need to care about such a small matter. If he didn't use the power, it would be invalid. Feng Zichen was naturally stingy with the power in his hands. Since you understand, I'll take my leave. Seeing Feng Zichen nod, Dijiang left. After Dijiang left, Feng Zichen mobilized the Dharma power that he had just recovered and moved into the Chaos Bead. The Chaos Bead was in the center of the human emperor's seal. To put it bluntly, although the human emperor's seal was called the human emperor's seal, it was actually the chaos bead. It was just a layer of clothing for the chaos bead. This clothing was made with Panga's finger bone as the main component and the power of the human Tao as the supplement. It was equivalent to a protective layer that completely protected the chaos bead so that it would not be destroyed by the heavenly Tao. This was also the reason why the 10,000 spirit crown could represent the human Tao and become a treasure of the human Tao, while the human emperor's seal could not. In fact, the human emperor's seal, a human Tao treasure, was a completely fake and inferior product. If not for Panga's finger bone, the human Tao would not recognize its identity as a human Tao treasure no matter what. Chapter 294. The refining of the human emperor's seal was said to be the result of Feng Zichen's hard work, but in fact it was thanks to Pangu. Otherwise, without the enhancement of Panga's finger bone, would people still help Feng Zichen refine the emperor's seal? Did he really think that humanity belonged to him and that he could borrow its power whenever he wanted to? What a dream! After becoming a Khanate cardinal treasure, the power of the chaos bead had increased tremendously. The chaotic space contained within had become even larger. It was boundless, empty, and desolate. It was completely capable of opening up hundreds of worlds. The laws of the great, desolate Aeon inside kept twisting, defying common sense. The concept that belonged to the great, desolate era was also blurring. Everything had to be redefined. It was completely different from the primordial world. The essence of this chaotic space was getting closer to the great chaos of the outer realm. It was becoming more and more similar to him. However, these were not the biggest changes to the chaos bead. His biggest change was that a deep black hole had appeared in the center of the chaotic space. One could see waves of tyrannical chaotic aura pouring out of the black hole and fusing with the chaotic space. It gradually changed its structure and urged it to move closer to the outer realm. This chaos energy belonged to the chaos energy of the outer realm. From this, it could be seen that the black hole was a passage that led directly to the chaos outside. It was just like the door to the void of end. After passing through this passage, one didn't need to pass through the barrier of the world to reach the outer realm. Similarly, the people of the outer realm could use this passage to bypass the barrier of the world and enter the great, desolate land, to the primordial world. This was an extremely terrifying thing. It would cause unimaginable consequences. The world barrier was the greatest protection that Pangu had left for the primordial world. In addition to blocking the invasion of the great chaos outside the realm, he also had another important task, and that was to stop the invasion of the chaos fiend gods. Because of the barrier of heaven and earth, those chaos demon gods who were lucky enough to survive Panga's attack could not set foot in untainted land, even if they had unimaginable strength. He could not cause any harm to the primordial world and cause it to return to the chaos to achieve his goal of taking revenge on Pangu. But now there was a passageway inside the chaos bead that allowed the chaos demon god to bypass the world barrier and come to the primordial world. This was simply too terrifying. If Feng Zichen had evil intentions, or if the chaos bead fell into the hands of the chaos demonic celestial, the untainted land would not be far from destruction. It was no wonder that the heavenly Tao would not allow the existence of the chaos bead. This was only a Khanate supreme treasure, but it already possessed such powerful abilities. If it was restored to a chaos supreme treasure, how unimaginable would it be? It was likely that he would directly open a channel to the outer realm of chaos in the great desolate realm. He would lead the outer realm of chaos into the great desolate realm and completely destroy the great desolate realm. If Feng Zichen was the heavenly Tao, he could not keep the chaos bead. This was simply a ticking time bomb that could blow up the entire primordial world at any time. This treasure must be destroyed. I really didn't expect the chaos bead to have such a function. Isn't this saying that the outer realm of chaos has become my backyard? I can come and go as I wish. After sizing up the chaos channel for a while, Feng Zichen was overjoyed. He was a creature of the chaos. To others, the outer realm of chaos was a dangerous place. But to him, it was a real blessed land. There were opportunities everywhere that could help him attain the Tao. However, the chaos bead had just been promoted to a connate supreme treasure, and the chaos space had yet to evolve, causing the channel to be unstable. It was possible to connect to the outer realm of chaos, but it would be difficult to go over. He had to wait until the level of the chaos bead increased a little before the channel could be completely stabilized and allow Feng Zichen to come and go. However, these problems were not problems in Feng Zichen's eyes. He still had the world tree. Communicating with the endless dimensions was the instinct of the world tree. With the channel in front of him, it was not difficult to connect to the outer realm of chaos. Feng Zichen could follow the world tree to the outer realm of chaos. At that moment, Feng Zichen's mind stirred. The world tree suddenly stretched out a root and directly inserted it into the chaos channel, forcefully expanding it and completely stabilizing it. Let's go. Without hesitation, Feng Zichen's figure moved and directly jumped into the channel, leaving the primordial world. To him, there was nothing that could heal his injuries better than the aura of chaos. That was the mother of all things, the ancestor of heaven and earth, the source of everything. Rumble. The chaos array spread out, and the great Tao divine diagram appeared. The surrounding chaos qi swarmed over and was all refined by the array. It poured into Feng Zichen's body, allowing him to heal his injuries and transform. Fighting was always the fastest way to improve. Facing the terror of Donghuang Tai, Feng Zichen benefited a lot. He had a new understanding of the great Tao. Although it couldn't raise his realm, it made his foundation deeper. Feng Zichen's cultivation speed was too fast. On the surface, there was no problem at all. However, compared to cultivators of the same realm, in terms of comprehension of the great Tao, he was still lacking some maturity and stability. His foundation seemed a little shallow. When others cultivated to Daluo Jingxian, they had experienced millions or even tens of millions of years of accumulation and polishing to reach their current level. Their foundation was naturally deep and more compatible with the great Tao. And these were all lacking by Feng Zichen. For Daluo Jingxian, living long enough was also a kind of strength. Just like that, Feng Zichen cultivated in seclusion in the outer realm of chaos to make up for his shortcomings. While Feng Zichen was in seclusion, the changes in the primordial world did not stop. Instead, it became more and more intense, as if a storm was coming. After all, the primordial world did not revolve around him alone. On Kunlun Mountain, the conflict between the Jie school and Chan school that had accumulated for many years finally erupted. Even the saints could not help but be affected, wearing fur and feathers wet and egg-like. Second brother, Yu. In the Jade Void Palace, the Grand Master of Heaven was so angry that his face turned red. He pointed at the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning and could not say anything. Primordial Beginning, they are your disciple nephews. How can you scold them like this? After a long while, the Grand Master of Heaven finally caught his breath and said angrily, "Humph. Am I wrong? Letting the disciples of Jie school live in Kunlun Mountain is simply a waste of this holy land." Originally, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning also felt that he had gone overboard, but the Grand Master of Heaven actually pointed at him and called him by his name. This made the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning completely angry, and his words could not help but be even more overboard. Good, good, good. The Grand Master of Heaven was so angry that he laughed and said good 3 times in a row. Chapter 295. Third brother listened to second brother's advice. It's better to get rid of your outer sect disciples as soon as possible so that they won't drag down your cultivation in the future. After a while, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning also felt that he had gone overboard. so he softly advised. To be honest, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning's words were indeed out of consideration for the Grand Master of Heaven. The disciples of Jeschool were all mixed up. There were all kinds of people. In terms of excellence, they were indeed outstanding. However, the character of these disciples needed to be considered. Looking at their methods, one would know that they were all sinister, evil, and extreme. Hearing the name, one would know that it was not a good method. It did not seem like an orthodox sect at all. Instead, it was more like an unorthodox sect. If word got out, it would inevitably affect the reputation of the celestial sect of wonders. Moreover, the disciples of Jeschool were taught by the Grand Master of Heaven and learned their skills. In the future, if any of these disciples committed the sin of killing, the karmic power would definitely mark it down on the prime of Tongtian. Although saints were not tainted by karma and were not afraid of the killing tribulation, the karma would still eliminate their luck and affect their cultivation. Therefore, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was indeed thinking for the Grand Master of Heaven, and he was sincere. After all, they were brothers. Seeing the hidden dangers of the Grand Master of Heaven, how could he not remind him? It was a pity. If the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning had not said those words, the Grand Master of Heaven might have listened. But now he was full of anger. His good impression of the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning had fallen to the bottom. The Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning's kind words were extremely ear-piercing to the Grand Master of Heaven. He felt that every word was targeted at him. He could not help but explode on the spot. The disciples of Jeschool are noble, and the disciples of Jeschool are lowly. All right, I'll leave. Today, I'll leave this place with my disciples. I won't be an eyesore to you. I'll leave this huge Kunlun mountain to your noble disciples. After saying that, the Grand Master of Heaven snorted coldly, waved his sleeve fiercely, and turned to leave the Jade Void Palace. You, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning, pointed at the Grand Master of Heaven and was speechless for a long time. Big brother, look at third brother. Does he have any rules? I tried to persuade him out of kindness. He can't live. He will regret it in the future. After a long while, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning said to the Grand Pure One after the Grand Master of Heaven left, Sai, you should also speak less. With third brother's departure today, the relationship between us three brothers has been ruined. However, it's good that third brother has left. There are many disciples of Jeschool, and most of them are active people. If he stays on Kunlun Mountain, he will cause trouble sooner or later. Now that they're gone, they won't be restrained. Perhaps they can be more at ease and return peace to Kunlun Mountain. After a moment of silence, the Grand Pure One sighed. They were brothers who had been together since they were born and had never been separated. Today, however, they had fallen out. If they had to go their separate ways, why bother? Most of the disciples of the Jia sect have yet to be eliminated. Although they have some background, they won't last long. They will definitely cause trouble in the future. Just wait and see. The Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning, who wanted to continue, could not help but change the topic when he saw the Grand Pure One's increasingly ugly expression. All right, let's not talk about third brother. In the future, only Big Brother and I will be left in Kunlun Mountain. Big Brother, you can stay for as long as you want. I won't ask. Hearing that, the Grand Pure One's expression froze. What did the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning mean? He could stay for as long as he wanted. Did he really think that he was the owner of Kunlun Mountain? With that thought in mind, the Grand Pure One, who was already unhappy, became even more unhappy. His old face was completely sullen. At that moment, he flung his sleeve and said unhappily, Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning, Sect Master of Jeschool, Master of Kunlun Mountain. How impressive. Poor Wei is unlucky. I can't accept your courtesy. I'll leave Kunlun Mountain to you alone. Poor Wei, it's better to find another place. With that, the Grand Pure One left the Jade Void Palace with a cold expression. Big Brother, At that moment, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning realized that he had said something wrong. However, at this point, it was over no matter what he said. He could only watch as the Grand Pure One left. Ah, it's good that they're all gone. I'm the only one left. Isn't Kunlun Mountain mine? Ha ha! After muttering to himself, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning suddenly laughed. The laughter was very loud. However, there was no joy. There was only endless sadness and indescribable sadness. The friendship that had been accumulated over countless years had been thought that they would support each other forever. However, today there was a crack and they could never go back. Just feeling uncomfortable was not enough to describe the feelings of the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning. Master, are you really leaving? In the Shangqing Hall, Xianqing looked at the absent-minded Grandmaster of Heaven and asked softly, "Ah, this is the will of the heavens. I have no choice but to leave." The Grandmaster of Heaven sighed and said in an inexplicable tone, "The three pure ones, the true lineage of Pangu, the direct lineage of the celestial sect of wonders, the saints of heaven and earth. They had enjoyed all the glory of the primordial world. They were the most honorable and powerful existences in the world. Were they really unable to resolve the conflict between their disciples? Would they really be swayed by their emotions? Could the Grand Master of Heaven really not see that the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was doing this for his own good? Would the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning really say something wrong? Why didn't the Grand Pure One stop the two of them when they were quarreling? This sentence revealed the helplessness in the hearts of the three pure ones. While becoming a saint and being respected by heaven and earth, they had also completely lost their freedom. They were destined to not be able to escape the control of the heavenly Tao and be controlled by it. They were unable to resist. If the heavenly Tao separated the three pure ones, what could they do? This was also the only thing that could restrict the saints in the primordial world. Otherwise, this world would have developed according to the will of the saints. Facing the saints, primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian might be able to fight them. However, facing the saints who controlled the power of the heavenly Tao in the primordial world, other than the saints, no one could contend against them. The stronger they were, the heavier the shackles on their bodies. The greater the restrictions they faced, the greater the price they had to pay for acting recklessly. This was the principle of the primordial world. The principle set by the heavenly Tao could not be violated. Not even the saints. The three pure ones were too powerful. 3 saints and 3 saints with connate cardinal treasures. This force was too strong beyond imagination. Facing such a powerful force, even the heavenly Tao would be afraid and increase the restrictions on them. Their power was bound to be weakened. It was because he saw this point that such a scene played out on Kunlun Mountain today. That's right. Everything that happened today was directed and acted by the three pure ones. Even if the 2 sects fought, it was also the result of the 2 saints' indulgence. Chapter 296. All of this was deliberately done by the 3 pure ones. The battle between the 2 sects and the separation of the 3 pure ones were all methods of the 3 pure ones. They were illusions that they used to confuse the heavenly Tao. They tried to use this method to dispel the suspicion of the heavenly Tao to prevent themselves from being schemed against by the heavenly Tao in the future. Unfortunately, the 3 pure ones failed. The separation of the 3 pure ones was just the beginning. In the future, the heavenly Tao still had a series of methods waiting for them. The God conferment was said to be a legitimate God, but in reality it was to weaken the power of the 3 pure ones. After the God conferment tribulation, the disciples of Jia school were either on the God roll or captured and became mounts. They were already dead in name only. Many of the 12 golden immortals of Chan school betrayed their sect and joined the Western Sand sect, causing the strength of Chan school to plummet. After a calamity, the loser, Jia school, was dead in name only. The winner, Chan school, was severely injured. The influence of the 3 pure ones in the primordial world could not help but decrease. The three pure ones themselves were restricted by Tao ancestor Hongjun and could not leave the chaos outside the sky. Based on the results, who would believe that the heavenly Tao was not deliberately targeting the three pure ones? Not to mention, the subsequent journey to the West Calamity completely caused the influence of the three pure ones to fall to the bottom. Their status was also taken away. After the liches and demons, the three pure ones were the greatest threat to the heavenly Tao. Goodbye! After taking one last look at Kunlun Mountain, the Grand Master of Heaven's lips moved slightly. Then he suddenly turned around and flew towards the East Ocean with a group of disciples. Third brother! Looking at the empty jade void palace in front of him, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning could not help but feel a little sad. The scene of them discussing the Tao in the past would never be seen again. Outside the hall, the disciples of Chan School knelt down. Their divine green eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. Jie School had left. Jie School had really left. Chasing Jie School out of Kunlun Mountain was the dream of the disciples of Chan School. Now that it had finally been achieved, they thought that they would be overjoyed. But in fact, when they heard the news, the first reaction in their hearts was not surprise, but endless fear. Chasing Jie School away was a small matter. If they ruined the friendship between the three pure ones, their sins would be huge. The disciples of the Chan School knew their own names. Compared to the friendship between the three pure ones, they were not as important as they had imagined. They could not bear the wrath of the heavenly lord of primordial beginning. Leave. This has nothing to do with you. After a long while, the primeval Lord of Heaven said, this was a trick directed and acted by the three pure ones. It had nothing to do with them. The moment the Grand Master of Heaven left, the providence that covered the sky above Kunlun Mountain suddenly split into three. The three pure ones split up. What's going on? On Mount Meru, Zhuan Ti immediately sensed it and looked at Kunlun Mountain in surprise. Following that, the group of powerful cultivators also reacted. They looked at Kunlun Mountain curiously and speculated in their hearts. The three pure ones were united. That was the true number one in the primordial world. No one in the world could compare to them. Even if Tao ancestor Hongjun took action, he might not necessarily be able to win. Even though the three pure ones were still extremely powerful after they split up, they were undoubtedly much less intimidating than before. However, the quarrel between brothers was a shameful thing. How could the three pure ones let outsiders know about it? Therefore, even though Zhuan Ti and the others waited for a long time, they still could not figure out what was going on. They could only look away helplessly and guess on their own. The separation of the three pure ones was undoubtedly a big event that shocked the primordial world. However, with the silence of the three pure ones, outsiders did not dare to discuss this matter. This caused the primordial world to fall into a strange silence. The East Sea was the blessed land of the Grand Master of Heaven. Most of his opportunities were obtained here. Therefore, after leaving Kunlun Mountain, his first thought was to set up another dojo in the East Sea. Therefore, he brought his disciples here. Master, why don't you go to my dojo to rest for a few days before looking for a place to stay? Looking at the endless blue sea in front of him, Xian Qing suggested to the Grand Master of Heaven. Although he knew that the Grand Master of Heaven's dojo was in the Aquamarine Palace on Golden Turtle Island in the East Sea, Xian Qing did not know the exact location of Golden Turtle Island and how the Grand Master of Heaven found it. It's okay. I've already found the place to stay. Come and take a look. Smiling, the Grand Master of Heaven pointed to the deep sea. That's following the guidance of the Grand Master of Heaven. Xian Qing looked forward. He could not help but narrow his eyes and exclaim. In the deep sea, a huge wave suddenly rose into the sky. Then a huge golden turtle suddenly poked its head out of the sea. It was extremely ferocious and roared at the sky. Of course, this was not enough to shock Xian Qing. What really shocked him was the cultivation of this huge golden turtle. Sage to be. This was a sage to be, ferocious beast. Haha, follow me. With a laugh, the Grand Master of Heaven waved his hand and brought everyone to the back of the golden turtle. This was a huge island. Although it was not as big as Kunlun Mountain, it was dozens of times bigger than the coast of the East Sea. On the island, the connate chi was dense. Celestial herbs could be seen everywhere. In the void, there were wisps of chaotic chi. No one knew where it came from. Although this place was not as magnificent as Kunlun Mountain, nor was it as endless as Kunlun Mountain, it was also magical. It was not much worse than Kunlun Mountain. Master, this ferocious beast is... With doubts in his heart, Xianqing asked directly. This is a ferocious beast that I met when I was traveling in the East Sea a few years ago. This ferocious beast was originally a connate divine demon that was bred by the origin of connate water. It should have been free and unfettered in the untainted land. But not long after the creation of the world, when it was still in the breeding stage, it was accidentally contaminated with the blood of the demon god of chaos. This caused the chaotic chi to enter its body. Its intelligence was tainted, and it became a ferocious beast. When I saw it, I felt that it was really pitiful. So I could not bear to see it. I wanted to dissolve the chaotic chi in its body and reopen its intelligence. So I suppressed it and used the Shangqing Taoist seal to cleanse the chaotic chi in its body and awaken its intelligence. With that, the Grand Master of Heaven grabbed Xianqing and brought him to the head of the golden turtle. Come and take a look. Xianqing looked over, and indeed, he saw a green Taoist seal between the golden turtle's eyebrows. It was emitting a green Taoist seal that was constantly baptizing the golden turtle's true spirit and removing the chaotic evil chi inside it. However, this process was a bit slow. It was unknown how long it would take for the Shangqing Taoist seal to completely remove the chaotic chi. Moreover, removing the chaotic chi did not mean that the golden turtle could reopen its intelligence. This matter was far from as simple as it was imagined. The more powerful a living creature was, the harder it was for it to have intelligence. With the cultivation of the sage-to-be golden turtle, it would be more difficult for it to have intelligence than for Xianqing to become a sage-to-be. Chapter 297. Master, do you have a way to activate Golden Turtle's intelligence in advance? After thinking for a while, Xianqing asked. No matter what, the Grand Master of Heaven was a saint. How could he use ordinary methods and spend a lot of time to restore Golden Turtle's intelligence? He must have other ways. Of course. Isn't it the best way for me to set up a sect on its back? With a smile, the Grand Master of Heaven's expression was somewhat unfathomable. MMIC. After thinking for a moment, Xianqing understood the reason. When a saint set up a sect here, he would often preach the great Tao and explain the truth. There would also be immortals gathering, either sitting and discussing the great Tao or comprehending the great Tao. The great Tao on these people spread out. In the long run, this place would definitely become a place favored by the great Tao and give birth to countless fortunes. The mountain was not high, but it was famous with immortals. The water was not deep, but it was spiritual with dragons. That was it. Golden Turtle had been in such an environment for a long time. With a saint preaching to it and immortals accompanying it, it was not difficult for it to develop intelligence. Speaking of which, Golden Turtle's treatment was really rare in the primordial world. Even the personal disciples of saints could not compare. From the looks of it, this Golden Turtle was really a good fortune. However, the Grand Master of Heaven's treatment of Golden Turtle was not without any request. He was a saint. Everything he did had infinite meaning. It was not as simple as being kind. Otherwise, there were many pitiful people in the primordial world. There were many more pitiful people than Golden Turtle. No matter how kind the Grand Master of Heaven was, he would not be able to divide it. The island on Golden Turtle's back was formed by gathering the spiritual wisdom of heaven and earth. It was a great fortune. Golden Turtle cultivated every day, and the Khanate chi it absorbed would first pass through the island. Therefore, every blade of grass and every inch of soil on the island was nourished by the Khanate chi day and night. Even if they were ordinary things before, after so many years, they had become extraordinary. Moreover, Golden Turtle was a sage-level, ferocious beast. It already had the ability to transform chaotic chi. When the Khanate chi circulated in its body, it would turn into pure chaotic chi. In the void on the island, the chaotic chi that filled the air came from this. Such a treasure land was occupied by the Grand Master of Heaven. He did not know how much karma he had with Golden Turtle. He didn't know what kind of price he would have to pay to understand. Saints valued karma the most, because this was one of the few forces that could affect them. Therefore, saints would not easily form karma with others. Once one owed a debt of karma, one would have to pay a huge price to repay it. On the one hand, he had found a Tao field that was not inferior to Kunlun Mountain for himself. On the other hand, he could also use this to open up Golden Turtle's intelligence and end the karma between them. At the same time, he could also find a quasi-sage fighter for the Jia school. There were many benefits. One had to admit that the prime of Tongtian's wishful thinking was very smart. Awakening one's spiritual intelligence was akin to being reborn. It was equivalent to being given a new life. Such a great favor, no matter how great the karma was, could be understood. Zhuan Yin intended to use this method to repay Hong Yun's favor of becoming a saint. Compared to that, the karma between Tongtian's sect leader and Golden Turtle was nothing. Rumble. Not long after the prime of Tongtian arrived on Golden Turtle Island, purple gas fell from the sky. Multicolored light filled the air. Above the sea, huge waves rolled. Golden lotuses were born. They were colorful and filled with the aura of creation. Purple gas and golden lotuses gathered on Golden Turtle Island. It was as if heaven and earth had merged. The mysteries of heaven and earth were born. One could see that at the end of the creation, a green palace was slowly taking shape. That palace was emitting bright, Shangqing immortal light. The Tao runes were deep, and the Khanate true will flowed. There was also purple gas lingering around it. It was very noble and extraordinary. This was the Azure Palace. It was the residence prepared by the heavenly Tao for Pangu, the prime clear saint, Tongtian sect leader. It was a superior grade Khanate spirit treasure. After all, he was the most noble existence in the world. Without Kunlun Mountain, the heavenly Tao could not let him suffer and live a shabby life. Therefore, it specially gave him this superior grade Khanate spirit treasure to act as his face. In the East Ocean Dragon Palace, the venerable dragons were speechless when they saw this scene. He had obtained a superior grade Khanate spirit treasure, just like that. It was too easy. When a Khanate spirit treasure reached superior grade, it would have a fundamental change. Its power would far surpass that of a middle grade Khanate spirit treasure. Its number would also become fewer. Even if the dragon race ruled the 4 seas and dominated the primordial world in the ancient times when Khanate spirit treasures were everywhere, there were not many superior grade Khanate spirit treasures collected. There were only middle grade and low grade Khanate spirit treasures. The Tongtian sect leader had obtained a superior grade Khanate spirit treasure so easily. How could they not be surprised? One had to know that although there were countless Khanate spirit treasures in the primordial world, most of them were middle grade and low grade Khanate spirit treasures. High grade and supreme grade Khanate spirit treasures were relatively rare. Khanate spirit treasures were equivalent to the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Khanate spirit treasures were equivalent to the Daluo Jinxian, and the quasi-sage was also the Daluo Jinxian. That middle grade and low grade Khanate spirit treasure was equivalent to the Daluo Jinxian. It was naturally common in the primordial world. High-grade connate spirit treasures were equivalent to the quasi-sage. Although there were also connate spirit treasures, the number was undoubtedly much smaller. All right, it's better for you to pay less attention to the matters of the saints, lest you bring trouble to yourselves. Suddenly, the ancestral dragon's dignified voice sounded from the void, warning everyone. Just as the ancestral dragon had said, how could outsiders spy on the saints? It was also a sin to offend the saints. Now, it was just that the Tongtian sect leader did not care about them. Otherwise, with these dragon experts staring at Golden Ao Island, no one would be able to say anything if the Grand Master of Heaven taught them a lesson. Speaking of which, it might not be a bad thing for the dragon race that the Jieskul came to the East Ocean. With the Jieskul around, it would definitely bring a lot of pressure to the dragon race. As the saying goes, with pressure comes motivation. If this could stimulate the dragon race's ambition, even if they lost the initiative in the East Ocean, it would be worth it. The Tongtian sect leader's abacus was not inferior to the ancestral dragons. In the blink of an eye, thousands of years had passed. After thousands of years of development, the Jieskul had completely settled down on Golden Ao Island. On this day, after settling the matters at hand, Xian Qingjing was extremely moved. He suddenly remembered that he had not returned to the Three Immortal Island for many years. Now that he had returned to the East Ocean, it was time to go back and take a look. With that thought in mind, Xian Qingjing no longer hesitated and immediately walked towards the green Turing Palace. Master, I haven't returned home for a long time. Today I've arrived at the door, but I want to go back and take a look. I hope Master will allow me. In the green Turing Palace, Xian Qingjing bowed. It's not a big deal. If you want to go back, just go back. I can't stop you. Chapter 298. Making a special trip here makes it seem as if I'm being unreasonable. Obviously, the sect leader of Tongtian was in a good mood and had the mood to tease Xianqing. Master, you must be joking. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Xianqing smiled awkwardly as he replied, I won't tease you anymore. I have something for you to do. You can only leave after you're done. The sect leader of Tongtian sat up straight and said, What orders do you have, Master? Xianqing's expression became serious when it came to serious matters. It's not a big deal. You don't have to be so nervous. Seeing Xianqing's serious expression, the sect leader of Tongtian waved his hand and continued. Although Golden Ao Island is not bad, it's still a little small compared to Kunlun Mountain. Your junior brothers are all living here. It's inevitable that it's a little crowded. Therefore, I plan to let those outer sect disciples all move out to free up some space. From now on, I will preach on Golden Ao Island every 1,000 years. At that time, all the outer sect disciples can return to Golden Ao Island to listen to the preaching. They can also ask me for guidance on cultivation. What do you think about this? With that, the sect leader of Tongtian looked at Xianqing. Compared to Kunlun Mountain, Golden Ao Island was not just small. It was like the difference between a stream and the sea. The area of Kunlun Mountain was bigger and wider than the upper-class world. The area of Golden Ao Island was not even comparable to the upper-class world. There was no comparison at all. If not, how could Golden Ao Island be comparable to Kunlun Mountain, the second most famous mountain in the world in terms of cultivation environment? It was because it was small that it could be compared to any place in Kunlun Mountain. Otherwise, what right did Golden Ao Island have to be compared to Kunlun Mountain? Master, you're right. Junior brothers don't like to be quiet. If they stay on Golden Ao Island, not only will they feel uncomfortable, but it will also be crowded. Let them leave and find their own cave abodes. They might even be eager. Coincidentally, this is the East Ocean. There are countless immortal islands on the sea. It's not difficult for them to find a place to settle down. After thinking for a while, Xianqing agreed. With the character of the disciples of the Jia sect, something would happen sooner or later if they stayed on Golden Ao Island. They might offend the sect leader of Tongtian. It was better to leave as soon as possible. That would be better for everyone. All right, it's good that you agree. I'll leave this matter to you. The Prime of Tongtian nodded and ordered. Yes, master. After receiving the order, Xianqing immediately drafted a decree and asked the Fire and Water Child to pass it down. A few years later, Xianqing completed the task given by sect leader Tongtian. After tidying up the cave residence, he turned around and left for Azure Palace to visit sect leader Tongtian. After seeing your brother left, everything on Golden Turtle Island fell on your shoulders. I've troubled you. After leaving the Aquamarine Palace, Xianqing said to Duo Bao, who had sent him off. Senior brother, you must be joking. On this Golden Turtle Island, there are only 3 junior sisters, and I left. We can't even get busy. What can happen? Hearing Xianqing's words, Duo Bao smiled. Personal disciples and outer sect disciples were treated differently after all. The Prime of Tongtian could let the outer sect disciples leave, but he would not let his personal disciples leave. After all, the personal disciples were the successors of the saints. They were the successors of their orthodoxy and represented their face. Only when his cultivation reached Daluo Jinxian could he be considered to have finished his apprenticeship and go out to explore. Now, it was better to stay obediently on Golden Ao Island and cultivate. Duo Bao, you can send me off here. Take care. I'm leaving. If there's anything in the future, you can come to the 3 Immortal Island to find me. With that, Xianqing's figure flashed and flew out of the island. On Golden Ao Island, there was the sect leader of Tongtian in charge. It was not as carefree as on the 3 Immortal Island. Returning there was truly carefree. Where is eldest senior brother going? Not far from Golden Ao Island, Xianqing heard someone calling him. The voice was crisp and pleasant. Just by hearing the voice, he knew that the person who came was a peerless beauty. It's the 3 junior sisters. Xianqing looked back. As expected, there were 3 beautiful figures in front of him. They were all rare beauties. They were the 3 Xiao sisters, Yun Xiao, Qiong Xiao, and Bai Xiao. Greetings, eldest senior brother. Seeing Xianqing stop, the 3 Xiao hurriedly went forward to greet him. Why, are the 3 junior sisters leaving Golden Ao Island too? Xianqing was a little curious when he saw the 3 of them. In the sect leader of Tongtian's heart, the 3 of them, together with Xiao Gongming, were no less important than his personal disciples. As such, why would the sect leader of Tongtian let them leave the island if their cultivation was not at Daluo Jinxian's level? The 3 of us came from the East Sea. Now that we've returned to our homeland, of course, we have to go back home to take a look. Yun Xiao took a step forward and explained. Xianqing understood after hearing what she said. The sect leader of Tongtian was not someone who was not close to relationships. If the 3 Xiao wanted to go home to take a look, of course, he would not reject them. Eldest senior brother, why aren't you comprehending the great Tao on Golden Ao Island? Why are you going out to sea? After a while, Yun Xiao asked in confusion. In her impression, this eldest senior brother was a seclusion maniac. Unless something major happened, she would definitely not see him. He had been in seclusion all this time. Of course, Yun Xiao still admired Xianqing's seclusion. People who sought the Tao were most afraid of being unable to endure loneliness. There were not many people like Xianqing who could guard their hearts and seek wholeheartedly. This was a true person who sought the Tao. Therefore, in private, many disciples of the Jia school regarded Xianqing as a role model to encourage themselves. Look, even a powerful existence like eldest senior brother was working hard to cultivate. What reason do you have not to work hard? The 3 Xiao were also a member of this group of people. Therefore, it was inevitable that Yun Xiao was surprised to see him going out to travel today. Didn't senior brother tell you? I was also born in the East Sea. Now that I have returned to the East Sea, of course, I have to go home to take a look. This time, Xianqing was a little strange. His identity was not a secret. How could the three Xiao not know? He, Xianqing, was born from the creation of the East Sea. He had obtained the luck of the 9 heavens to transform. He was a natural-born saint and was of the same origin as the heavens. This information was known with a single calculation. He did not hide it at all. Therefore, Xianqing thought that everyone in the Jie school knew his identity. He did not expect that there were really people who did not know. Senior brother is also from the East Sea. I really don't know. To be honest, the three Xiao was also a homebody. She rarely interacted with others. Besides, who would have the time to calculate others' background? Wasn't that looking for trouble? Therefore, they really did not know Xianqing's background. May I know which immortal island senior brother is cultivating on? Maybe he's our neighbor? At this moment, Qiong Xiao asked curiously. Chapter 299. There were many immortal islands in the East Sea, but there were only a few that could compare to the blessed Grotto Heavens. Without a doubt, the first place was Dongwangong's Zifu State. From this name, one could see how extraordinary it was. The first place was indisputable. The rest were Xianqing's 3 immortal island, the 3 immortal island that gave birth to the 3 Xiao immortals. These were the immortal islands that could give birth to innate god-fiends. There weren't many of these immortal islands. Now that he heard that Xianqing was also from the East Sea, Sun Xiao naturally felt a sense of familiarity. The concept of the primordial world was still very strong. Otherwise, the East wouldn't look down on the West so much. As innate god-fiends from the East Sea, Xianqing took good care of Sun Xiao. After all, in the East Sea, other than the Water Clan, there weren't many innate god-fiends left. Each of them was quite precious and was his natural ally. In theory, below the East Sea was the Water Clans. Above, it was the innate god-fiends. However, now that the innate god-fiends were weak, most of the blessed lands on the East Sea were occupied by the innate god-fiends from the land. It was really annoying. These were all their wealth. One had to know that since it was called an immortal island, there were definitely many innate spiritual objects and all kinds of treasures on the island. Now that these immortal islands were occupied by outsiders, their losses were simply immeasurable. Who knew if there would be any unimaginable treasures on those immortal islands? Thinking of this, no one would be able to bear the loss. Therefore, the innate god-fiends born in the East Sea had common interests. They could form an alliance and defend the rights and interests of the outer East Sea together. The past was a problem left behind by history, even if it was in the past. In the future, if there were cultivators from the land who came to the East Sea to make a living, they couldn't control those in the sea. But on the surface of the sea, they had to get their consent. There were still masters on the East Sea. In fact, there weren't as few innate god-fiends in the East Sea in the past. They could be considered a very powerful force in the primordial world. At that time, the East Sea was completely dominated by them. Even the Dragon Clan, the master of the 4 seas, had to avoid them and didn't dare to compete with them. At that time, none of the innate god-fiends on land dared to come to the East Sea to dominate it. They didn't want to live. They were once the number 1 force in the East Sea. He was the leader of the male immortals in the world, the Duke of the East. But it was a pity that the glory of the Violet Palace realm didn't last long. Dong Huang Tai alone had destroyed the number 1 power in the Eastern Sea, turning the Purple Mansion into the dust of history. Because of this, the Eastern Sea's innate gods were all wiped out and no one dared to rise again. That was what led to the current situation. Senior brother is from the 3 Immortal Island. Junior sister, have you heard of it? Xianqing replied with a smile. This is senior brother's dojo, also called Three Immortal Island? It's actually the same as our dojo. Qiong Xiao could not help but exclaim. Xiao's nonsense is a joke. Senior brother, you're talking about the Three Immortal Islands overseas, also known as the Three Immortal Mountains overseas. It is a legendary place of good fortune in the East Sea. It is not inferior to the top grotto heavens in the untainted land. It is far from our Three Immortal Islands. Before Xianqing could speak, Yun Xiao took the lead to explain. I didn't expect senior brother to be from the Three Immortal Island. How enviable. After explaining to Qiong Xiao and Bai Xiao, Yun Xiao turned around and said to Xianqing enviously, the Three Immortal Island overseas was a legend in the East Sea. It had always existed in rumors, but no one had really seen it. All the living beings in the East Sea had only heard of its name and never seen its whereabouts. People like Yun Xiao thought that it was fabricated by their predecessors. Qiong Xiao and Bai Xiao had never heard of it. Now that the legend had suddenly become reality, the shock of the three nights could be imagined. What's the big deal? It's just a place where people live. Xianqing's words were asking for a beating. Straw huts and palaces were also places where people lived, but how could they be the same? Yun Xiao was speechless when she heard that. Senior brother, can we go to your dojo to take a look? I've never seen the number one sacred ground in the East Sea. I really want to take a look. Bai Xiao said excitedly after learning about the origins of the Three Immortal Island. Of course, the Three Immortal Island is so big, I can't see it all by myself. It's not impossible to lend one to you. It's not just you guys. Even the other junior brothers and sisters who want to come to the Three Immortal Island are welcomed by me. Xianqing nodded and said affirmatively. If the disciples of Jie School came to the Three Immortal Island, not only would Xianqing not reject them, he would also look forward to it. The Three Immortal Island had a destiny and was destined to become a gathering place for itinerant immortals. Since Xianqing had become its master, he naturally accepted its destiny. If he wanted to turn the Three Immortal Island into a gathering place for itinerant immortals, he would naturally need the help of the disciples of Jie School. Xianqing's junior brothers might not be as good as the disciples of Chan School in terms of the righteous path. However, in terms of unorthodox methods and strange techniques, few people in the primordial world could compare to them. These were precisely what Xianqing needed. What was an itinerant immortal? Immortals who had no sex and no worries were called itinerant immortals. Without any inheritance, they would inevitably be lacking in combat strength compared to the disciples of large sections. In order to make up for their shortcomings, the itinerant immortals racked their brains and tried their best to display their strengths. With limited knowledge, they created miracles and opened up the 100 arts of immortal cultivation to perfect the immortal Tao. It could be said that the 100 arts of immortal cultivation were the foundation of itinerant immortals' survival. In the future, as itinerant immortals, if they did not master one or two skills, they would be too embarrassed to come out and meet others. The predecessor of the 100 arts of immortal cultivation was the strange technique that the disciples of Jie School came up with. Gathering the disciples of Jie School to the Three Immortal Island and gathering their wisdom would definitely bring endless inspiration to Xianqing. In this way, would the 100 arts of immortal cultivation be far away? With the 100 arts in hand, Xianqing's position as the master of the Earth Immortals would be stable. Once the witch and demon calamity ended and the immortal Tao flourished, he would be able to enjoy endless luck and live a carefree life. Let's go! After coming back to his senses, Xianqing waved his sleeves, and the void changed. In an instant, the four of them arrived outside the Three Immortal Island. Rumble! Sensing Xianqing's aura, the connate Three Talents array automatically activated and opened a passage to welcome the return of its master. This island-protecting array is really extraordinary. In the passage, Yun Xiao looked at the connate Three Talents array in front of her and felt goosebumps all over her body. The might of that grand formation was simply too powerful. A casual attack from it would be enough to completely obliterate her. This is the Khanate 3 talents array. Although it can't be compared to Master's immortal slaying sword array, it's still a top-notch array in the primordial world with endless power. Only pre-saints can break it, Xianqing introduced as he walked. Chapter 300. Wow. The environment here is not inferior to Kunlun Mountain at all. When they arrived at Penglai Island, San Shao could not help but exclaim. The innate spirit qi on the island was unimaginably dense. It had already formed spiritual clouds floating in the air. From time to time, spiritual rain would fall, nourishing everything. It was extremely mystical. This was a scene that could not be seen in the outside world. Furthermore, the primal chaos essence energy floating in the void was even more than that of Golden Ao Island. It was not inferior to Kunlun Mountain. There were probably not many holy lands in the great desolate world that could compare to it. After all, it was the top immortal island in the great desolate world. Even if it could not compare to Kunlun Mountain, it would not be too far off. That is, innate spirit root? A pool of innate spirit roots? Oh my god, that's too much. The most precious and eye-catching thing on Penglai Island was undoubtedly the pool of pure world white lotuses. The moment San Shao stepped onto Penglai Island, he was attracted to it and could not help exclaiming, "First senior brother is really rich. No wonder he doesn't like some of the treasures of Jia School." After a while, San Shao came back to his senses and said in shock, there were at least 100 lotus flowers in the pool. Even if they were all inferior grade innate spirit roots, they were still a shocking amount of wealth. Furthermore, they were not. In the middle of the spiritual pool, the 12th grade lotus flower, shrouded in sacred light, looked very majestic. It was definitely a supreme grade innate spirit root, which was rare in the great desolate world. With this pool of lotus flowers, Xianqing could be considered a top tycoon in the great desolate world. Apart from the powerful cultivators at the front of the Purple Cloud Palace, almost no one could compare to him. This is the 12th grade pure world white lotus, one of the 4 great lotus platforms of the great desolate world. It is a supreme grade innate spirit treasure and also a supreme grade innate spirit root. It is one of the top innate spirit treasures of the great desolate world. The sect-guarding treasure of the Western sect is its brother from the same sect. Furthermore, the pure world white lotus is a top sect-guarding treasure of the great desolate world. It can purify all the filthy qi in the world. It has great benefits in the cave abode. Seeing San Zhao's curiosity, Xianqing introduced it. Among the numerous Khanate numinous treasures, there were only a few that could compare to the 4 great lotus platforms. Their status among the Khanate spirit treasures was equivalent to the status of Zenyuanzi and Kunpeng among the pre-saints. Eldest senior brother is truly blessed. With such a supreme treasure in hand, the future of the great Tao is bright. After knowing the origin of the treasure in front of him, San Zhao's heart was filled with envy. With such a supreme treasure by his side, it would be hard for him not to be strong. Do you like it? If you like it, I'll give each of you one. Xianqing smiled and said generously, as long as the tree of world was there, it could cultivate the white lotuses of purification without limit. Therefore, this thing was really not considered precious in his eyes. He didn't feel any heartache when he used it as a favor. This is too valuable. We can't accept it. Although he was a little moved, Yun Xiao still rejected him. It was true that they were Xianqing's martial brother and sister, but their relationship was not that good. It's fine. Senior brother doesn't lack this item. I'm giving it to you as a token of my appreciation. You mustn't refuse. If the Tao of itinerant immortals was to prosper, the help of San Shao and Yun Xiao would be needed. It was better to build a good relationship now than to be clinging to Buddha's feet. It was not only them. Among the disciples of Jia school, Xianqing would give appropriate help to the disciples with good character. Building a good relationship with them would definitely bring great benefits in the future. This was called investing in advance. Xianqing would not do a business without capital. All right then. But Xianqing, Yun Xiao and Yun Xiao nodded and walked towards the chaos spirit pool. The three of them looked outside the pool for a while, and then each picked a 6th grade white lotus. Seeing this scene, a hint of admiration appeared in Xianqing's eyes. These Sanxiao knew how to behave. The 6th grade white lotus was only a middle grade connate spirit treasure. It was far inferior to the 9th grade white lotus in the pool. Xianqing let them choose. Normally they should choose the best, but they didn't. This undoubtedly won Xianqing's favor. Giving away 3 superior grade connate spirit treasures in a row, even Xianqing would feel heartache for a while. Of course, even if San Xiao chose the 9th grade white lotus, Xianqing would not say anything. After all, he was the one who said it. They did not do anything wrong if they did as he said. However, in that case, Xianqing's impression of San Xiao would not be good. Thank you, senior brother. After picking the white lotus, San Xiao returned to Xianqing's side and thanked him happily. It's okay. Xianqing shook his head and said. Next, Xianqing brought San Xiao to tour 3 Immortal Island, causing the 3 of them to be amazed. Dong dong dong. On this day, Xianqing was taking a nap. Suddenly, a melodious bell sounded in his ears, waking him up. Has 1,000 years passed just like that? That bell was the sound of the immortal gathering bell. Since it sounded, it meant that 1,000 years had passed. The Tongtian sect would hold a sermon on Golden Ao Island and answer the questions of the disciples at the same time. Immediately, Xianqing's figure moved and rushed to the green touring palace. In fact, with his cultivation level, it was no longer useful for him to preach to the general public like the Tongtian sect leader. However, this was the first time the Tongtian sect leader held a sermon after coming to the East Ocean. As the eldest disciple of the Jia school, he could not be absent. It would be fine in the future. If nothing major happened, he, the eldest disciple of the Xian sect, would not have to run to Golden Ao Island. Along the way, Xianqing looked around and saw that it was full of aquatic creatures. They were rushing to Golden Ao Island, afraid that they would not be able to get a good seat if they were late. The Tongtian sect leader's sermon was not only for the disciples of the Jia school. All the living beings of the primordial world could come and listen. However, they could not go to the Green Touring Palace to listen to the teachings of the saint like the disciples of the Jia school. They could only find a random place on Golden Ao Island to listen to the lingering sound of the saint's sermon. Saints still had the word saint in them. They had the responsibility of educating all living beings in the primordial world. Their principles could be heard by anyone. In the past, on Kunlun Mountain, the 3 pure ones often sat down and discussed the Tao. It attracted countless living beings of the primordial world to come and listen. There was no lack of liches among them. Even so, the 3 of them did not chase away the people who came to listen to the Tao. Saints still had to care about their image. Education without discrimination. Although it was the philosophy of the Jia school, it did not mean that the other saints did not have to abide by it. It was fine if one did not preach the Tao. However, if one preached the Tao, one did not care who came to listen. One just had to preach the Tao in peace. Saints preached on behalf of the heavens. It was not a joke. Don't make any noise in the saints' Tao field. After arriving at Golden Ao Island, Xianqing swept a glance at the living beings on the island and said sternly. Suddenly, the world fell silent. Junior Brother Water, Junior Brother Hua, please maintain order. Don't let them offend Master. Xianqing turned around and said to the child of fire and water, Chapter 301. The children of fire and water were connate life forms, nurtured by the connate fire and water gourd. They could control the power of water and fire and were quite extraordinary. After they were born, they were taken in as children by the Grand Master of Heaven to take care of his daily life. In fact, although it was said to take care of his daily life, the saint did not need outsiders to serve him. These two children had always been used as messengers by the Grand Master of Heaven. Of course, they should not be underestimated just because they were children. These two people were called children, but they were actually disciples and were very favored by the Grand Master of Heaven. Perhaps even some outer sect disciples were not as important as these two in the Grand Master of Heaven's heart. Speaking of which, if they were not favored by the saint, how could they be chosen as children? Therefore, every child had great potential. Hao Tian Jade Pool was just two children of the Tao ancestor, but in the future they ascended to the limitless position of the Celestial Emperor. This was something that even the saint did not expect. Yes, eldest senior brother. The children of fire and water bowed to Xianqing and went to maintain order. It might not be a bad thing for the Jia school to come to the East Sea. At the very least, with the saint overseeing it, the East Sea will be completely stable. The usual disputes will undoubtedly be reduced by a lot. Xianqing released his spiritual will and scanned the East Sea. He sighed. In the past, on the East Sea, there was endless killing and disputes. It was either for immortal islands, spiritual herbs, or connate spirit treasures. In short, everything of value could make the living beings of the East Sea fight to the death. The East Sea did not have a powerful person overseeing it. It was a completely lawless place. All the forces were mixed together, and it was extremely chaotic. As for the ancestral dragon, he would not care about the matters on the sea. After all, he was no longer the overlord of the world. The era that belonged to him had passed. After all, he had to avoid suspicion and interfere less in the disputes on land. But now the Grand Master of Heaven had come, and everything had changed. The entire East Sea was cleared, and the soldiers stopped fighting. He did not have to do anything. He just sat quietly in the Aquamarine Palace. The countless cultivators of the East Sea would be wary of his existence and restrain themselves. They would not make a move unless they had no other choice. The Grand Master of Heaven's arrival in the East Sea had a direct or indirect impact on the East Sea that was definitely beyond imagination. Or 800 years later, the Grand Master of Heaven's preaching ended. All the living beings on Goldenao Island retreated to avoid disturbing the saint. Next, it was time for the disciples of Jia School to ask the Grand Master of Heaven for instructions. The difficulties in cultivation had nothing to do with the living beings of the East Ocean. All of you may leave. After another 100 years, the prime of Tongtian finally finished explaining the problem to his disciples. He waved his hand and said, "Yes, Master." Everyone bowed to the prime of Tongtian and left together. Junior brothers, please wait a moment. On Goldenao Island, Xianqing stopped the disciples of Jia School who were about to leave. Senior marshal brother, is there something you need from us? Everyone stopped in their tracks and bowed to Xianqing before they asked in confusion. Nothing serious. Senior brother, I just want to ask if you found a place to stay? Xianqing asked as he helped everyone up. Thank you for your concern, senior brother. There are countless deity islands in the East Sea, and they are rich in resources. We have already found a place to stay. There are indeed many Eastern Sea immortal islands. Therefore, these disciples of Jia School could find some good immortal islands if they went out for a stroll. Although the immortal islands they found could not be compared to Goldenao Island, it was enough to support themselves. Moreover, living alone would give them more freedom. It was much more comfortable than staying on Goldenao Island. Cultivation was all about being free and unfettered. Suppressing one's nature would only cause one to deviate from the great Tao. It was extremely disadvantageous to one's cultivation. The prime of Tongtian had noticed this, and that was why he had ordered his disciples to leave. Otherwise, did he really think that a saint would not be able to solve the problem of Golden Ao Island not being big enough? Saints were existences that stood at the peak of the primordial world. With a wave of their hand, they could create countless small worlds and even create a major kiliacosm without harming themselves. It was not a big deal to expand the area of Golden Ao Island. The reason why he did not do so was for the sake of the disciples' future. It's good that you found it. Senior Marshal Brother, you can rest assured. Hearing this, Xianqing nodded. He was not worried that these junior brothers would snatch other people's islands. How stupid must they be to do such a disgraceful thing under the nose of a saint? Did they really think that the Prime of Tongtian would not kill? Fellow junior brothers, can you please draw the locations of your islands on the map so I can know where your dojos are located? As he spoke, Xianqing took out a scroll and opened it in front of everyone. This was the map of the East Sea. Of course, this was not the complete map of the East Sea. It was only a part of it. With Golden Ao Island as the center, it spread to a radius of hundreds of millions of miles. All the immortal islands and sea areas were in it. As for the real map of the East Sea, it was the treasure that suppressed the fate of the East Sea. It was in the hands of the ancestral dragon. How could Xianqing covet it? Junior brothers, see if you can find the location of your islands on this map. Throwing the map of the East Sea into the air, Xianqing said with a smile, "This map recorded everything within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles." Xianqing did not believe that a group of Tai Jinxian and Golden Immortals could run so fast. The island they chose could be hundreds of millions of miles away from Golden Ao Island. After looking at the map of the East Sea, everyone stepped forward and marked their positions. All right, this way. It will be much more convenient for you to contact each other in the future. Xianqing turned his hand and hung the map of the East Sea on a conspicuous cliff in Golden Ao Island so that everyone could see it clearly. This map records the dojos of the disciples of the Jia sect. It's not appropriate to call it the map of the East Sea. Why don't we call it the map of the Jia sect's immortal residence? Xianqing said after thinking for a while. As soon as he finished speaking, wisps of green light fell from the void and landed on the map of the East Sea. That was the fate of the Jia sect. This map was the distribution map of the disciples of the Jia sect. Its birth was beneficial to the Jia sect. Naturally, it attracted the favor of the Jia sect. After a burst of green light, the map of the East Sea had changed greatly. There are countless immortal islands on it, and it was densely covered with stars. It had completely turned into the map of the Jia sect's immortal residence. This map was originally an ordinary painting, but now, after being modified by the fate of the Jia sect, it had become a postnatal treasure. As soon as the picture appeared, the Golden Turtle Island suddenly shook. Vast amounts of spiritual energy surged into the void. Its target was the dojos of the disciples of the Jia sect. This was the ability of the Jia sect's immortal residence map. It connected the spirit veins on Golden Ao Island to the surrounding islands of the disciples of the Jia sect. It provided them with Khanate Qi and improved their cultivation environment. Chapter 302. Thank you, eldest senior brother. Seeing this, the disciples of the Jia school thanked Xianqing. This was a pleasant surprise. They had gained so much just by reporting the name of the place. They had really made a profit. Could it be that there were people who would dislike their own dojo for being too good? Ahem. There's no need to be so polite. This is what I should do. Xianqing coughed twice and said calmly. He did not expect the changes in the Jia school's immortal residence map in advance. His original intention was to record the location of the disciples of the Jia school so that he could find them in the future. But who knew that such a change would happen? However, these were not important. This did not stop him from pretending that he knew everything. After all, if Xianqing could not calculate it, the disciples of the Jie school would not be able to. With a thought, Xianqing suddenly formed a Dao seal and pointed at the Jie school's immortal residence map. Suddenly, a bright light erupted and shot into the sky. Above the sky, a huge picture of the Jie school's immortal residence was formed. It covered the sky and the sun, causing the endless living beings of the East Sea to look up and see it clearly. Everything recorded in this map is the territory of the Jie school. If outsiders violate it, they will be killed without mercy. Fellow Taoists of the East Sea, please bear this in mind. After doing all this, Xianqing said coldly. His voice was so loud that it spread throughout the entire East Sea. He was warning the cultivators of the East Sea. The disciples of the Jie school were of different levels. The strong ones, such as Xianqing, were existences who had attained the Daluo Dao fruit. The weak ones were worse. Their cultivation level was only that of a golden immortal. Moreover, there were many such disciples. When the Jie school first came to the East Sea, it was hard to guarantee that there would not be people who were bold enough to kill some disciples with lower cultivation levels. One had to know that the Grand Master of Heaven was very good to his disciples. As a result, the disciples of the Jie school, regardless of their cultivation level, had at least one connate spirit treasure to protect themselves. Some disciples even had several connate spirit treasures. They were all very rich. To be honest, even Xianqing could not help but have the urge to snatch them, not to mention those cultivators who lived in the East Sea for a long time. They were cunning and fierce, and their courage was first class. They might even dare to attack the disciples of the Jie school. Even the Grand Master of Heaven could not pay attention to the movements of the disciples all the time. It wasn't that he couldn't, but that he wasn't willing. Disciples also had their own freedom. How could there be a teacher watching them all the time? What kind of propriety was that? Moreover, saints also needed to cultivate. Perhaps one day, when the Grand Master of Heaven fell into Tao enlightenment, something would happen to his disciples, and he would not be able to sense it. With Mount Buzhou suppressing the long river of time and space, any cultivator below Daluo Jingxian who died was truly dead. Even the saints could not reverse the flow of time and revive them. As the saying goes, it is better to be safe than sorry. It is always good to take precautions in advance. All right, junior brothers, if you have matters to attend to, you may leave first. With this map, it will be much more convenient for you to visit each other in the future. Xianqing said to his junior brothers with a smile after he put away his superpowers. Yes, senior brother. The disciples of Jie school bowed to Xianqing again and left. However, Xianqing did not leave Golden Turtle Island, but stayed. Duo Bao, bring me all the void stones in the treasury. At the same time, help me perfect my plan. After everyone left, Xianqing said to Duo Bao, the void stone was a peerless treasure that was coincidentally produced when the void was destroyed. It had a trace of the charm of the void great Tao and was extremely precious. However, that was in front of ordinary people. In front of Xianqing and the others, this item was just a small thing. In the treasury of Jie school, the void stones were not ranked. There was a huge pile, just like ordinary stones. It was nothing. After a while, Duo Bao returned to Xianqing's side with the mountain-like void stones. Senior brother, I brought you the void stones you wanted. Is there anything else you need help with? Duo Bao asked curiously after putting down the void stones. His senior brother could be said to be omnipotent and knew everything. It was really strange that he needed his help today. Senior brother, I have a big plan. If it succeeds, not only will it be very beneficial to Jie school, you and I will also obtain some merit. Xianqing led Duo Bao to his cave abode as he spoke. What is the plan? Senior brother, tell me about it so that I can have a plan in my heart and know where to start. Hearing Xianqing's words, Duo Bao's eyes lit up and he asked curiously, Merit? That's merit, you know. Ever since Duobao was born, he had never obtained any merit. Now that he heard that Xianqing's plan could actually allow him to obtain merit, how could he not be excited? Probably no one in the primordial world would not be excited in the face of merit. He had long heard that the heaven-earth merit was mysterious and unpredictable. It could directly increase one's cultivation level, increase one's luck, and reduce one's tribulation. Without merit, one could not even become a sage-to-be. He had yet to personally experience such a miraculous treasure. Therefore, today, even if he had to do his best, he would help his senior brother complete that plan and see the wonders of the heaven-earth merit. Although Feng Zichen could obtain merit easily, that was because he had the backing of the huge knowledge of the later generations. If Duo Bao wanted to obtain merit, he had to create something out of nothing. It was naturally extremely difficult. Duo Bao, how long do you think it will take for our junior brothers to travel to and from Golden Ao Island from their dojos? If we visit our senior brothers again, how long will it take for us to travel back and forth? Without answering Duo Bao's question, Xianqing asked him an unrelated question. Duo Bao had never thought about these questions. For a moment, it was difficult for him to answer. He could not help but ponder. Xianqing did not rush him and waited for Duo Bao to think about the answer. After a while, Duo Bao had an answer in his heart and said slowly, as the sword ancestor attained the Tao, the primordial world evolved further, causing space to become more stable. Even a primordial immortal would find it extremely difficult to shift the void. At the very least, one has to have perfected Tai Jinxian cultivation. Therefore, junior brothers, if you want to come to Golden Ao Island, you can only use an escape technique. With their speed and distance, it will take at least 100 years to travel to and from Golden Ao Island. Depending on the distance, it will take at least a few years to thousands of years to visit fellow disciples. As he spoke, Duo Bao seemed to have understood something, and his voice stopped abruptly. Have you noticed the problem? Master will preach the Tao every 1,000 years. As for the junior brothers, they will need hundreds or even thousands of years to travel. In that case, how can they have enough time? They will either give up listening to the Tao in order to cultivate or give up cultivating in order to listen to the Tao. But how can that work? Cultivation and listening to the Tao complement each other. The lack of either will affect the progress of cultivation. This can't be taken. Chapter 303. That's right. Xianqing was talking about the teleportation array of the later generations. This was an array formation that had never appeared before the primordial world. In the later generations, the cultivators' realms were low. Most cultivators could not cross the earth, destroy regions, and cross realms. Thus, the teleportation array was born. Now, the primordial world was vast and boundless. The Tai Jinxian had spent countless years, but could not travel all over the primordial world. The Daluo Jinxian could not see the end either. Many cultivators below the Daluo Jinxian could only go around in one place for their entire lives. They did not know how vast the primordial world was and how big the world was. Therefore, this was the best time for the teleportation array to be born. This is troublesome. However, since eldest senior brother has thought of this, I think you have already thought of a solution. Then, eldest senior brother's plan is related to this. After Xianqing finished speaking, Duo Bao asked cooperatively, "That's right. My big plan is related to this." Xianqing nodded. He was very satisfied with Duo Bao's cooperation. The Jia school is famous for our array formations. If we claim to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Therefore, I plan to use my strength and create an array formation. Distort the void to achieve the effect of void teleportation. This way, we can let those junior brothers who have not reached the perfected Tai Jinxian do not have to travel long distances to come to Golden Ao Island. If they want to come, they can just go through the space array. It's simple and fast. It can also save a lot of time. In addition, if this array formation can be popularized in the primordial world, I wonder how many living beings will benefit. This is all our merit. After returning to the cave abode, Xianqing explained to Duobao, "Senior brother, you are so talented. I can't compare to you. Using the matter of the Jia school to see the entire primordial world and come up with such a thing that benefits the billions of living beings in the primordial world. Senior brother's wisdom is really admirable. Senior brother is really a virtuous person." At this moment, Duobao was a little excited. As he spoke, he bowed to Xianqing. "I will never forget senior brother's kindness." Xianqing told him this technique. Obviously, he wanted to share it with him. If this technique was successful, he would definitely be able to share some merit. In this way, his future great Tao. Merit was the ticket to the door of a quasi-saint. With merit, one might not be able to become a quasi-saint, but without merit, one would definitely not be able to become a quasi-saint. What Xianqing did was equivalent to giving Duobao a chance to prove his Tao. How could Duobao not be excited? Don't thank me yet. Whether or not this matter will succeed is still uncertain. It's too early to thank me now. Seeing how happy Duobao was, Xianqing couldn't help but pour cold water on him. He, Xianqing, was not a good person. No matter what he did, he had a purpose. Now that he was treating Duobao so well, he naturally had a different purpose. What he did was just compensation. If nothing unexpected happened, Taoist Duobao would be the teacher of the future, earthly sovereign. But now Xianqing was here. He could not snatch the position of the emperor's teacher from the Grand Pure One, but he could not lose the position of the emperor of Earth's teacher. As such, Duobao had no choice but to suffer. However, Duobao was his junior brother after all. Xianqing felt a little guilty for robbing him of his merit. Therefore, he planned to make some compensation to Duobao. From now on, whenever there was a matter of great merit, Xianqing would bring Duobao along to make up for his losses and reduce the guilt in his heart. Xianqing's birth contained all kinds of schemes of Feng Zichen to seize the good fortune of heaven and earth for him. It could be said that this was his nature. How could he be open and honest? His every move was naturally filled with schemes. Senior brother, you must be joking. For you to think of me for such a matter of great merit, you are already worthy of my gratitude. Moreover, is there anything you can't do? Duobao didn't care much about Xianqing's cold water. As Xianqing had said earlier, Jia school was the best in array formations in the primordial world. They already had the concept of array formations. If they couldn't realize it, it would be really embarrassing. They might as well kill themselves. All right, stop praising me. It's better to create the array formation as soon as possible and distribute it to the junior brothers during Master's next lecture. Shaking his head, Xianqing said, the two of them were array formation masters and had many treasures. Not long after, a huge spatial array formation was set up in front of them. Rumble. The moment the array formation was set up, a powerful force erupted, distorting the void and causing space to become chaotic. Waves of tyrannical void power surged out, wreaking havoc in the boundless void. There's still one last step. As he spoke, Xianqing formed a hand seal and entered a spatial coordinate into the teleportation array formation. These were the coordinates of Penglai Island. Whether the teleportation array formation could succeed or not depended on whether it could teleport people to the destination. With the coordinates, the chaotic void power immediately reacted. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a force that went straight to Penglai Island. Boom! When the changes in the array formation stopped, a deep passage appeared in front of Xianqing and Duobao. Without hesitation, Xianqing walked in. When Duobao saw this, he hurriedly followed in. This passage wasn't long. In just a short while, the two of them walked out and arrived at a place of creation. It was Penglai Island. Is this senior brother's training ground? Indeed, it's a beautiful place with boundless creation. It's a rare sacred ground in the great desolate Aeon. This was Duobao's first time coming to Three Immortal Island. Hence, he was immediately shocked by Penglai Island's atmosphere. Don't look at it first. Once we're done, we'll have plenty of time for you to look at it. Xianqing smiled as he looked at Duobao, whose eyes were filled with curiosity. Duobao, although this teleportation array formation has been created, it hasn't reached a perfect level yet. It can't be used for two-way teleportation. Now, you should stay here and think about how to set up a teleportation formation on Penglai Island and connect it to the teleportation formation on Golden Turtle Island. Without giving Duobao a chance to refuse, Xianqing instructed directly. The general framework of the teleportation array formation was already completed. Next, it was time to deal with some details. It was very simple. Naturally, Xianqing didn't need to do anything. He could just leave it to Duobao. Yes, senior brother. Duobao replied excitedly. The more he participated in this matter, the more merits he would receive after the event. Of course, he had no reason to refuse. All right. Senior brother still has some world-cleansing white lotuses here. Later, go to the primal chaos spirit pool and pick a rank 9 white lotus. Take it as a gift from senior brother. Unlike San Shao, Xianqing's relationship with Duobao was much closer. Xianqing didn't feel bad giving him a superior grade, connate spiritual treasure. World-cleansing white lotus, the legendary connate for great lotus platforms. Such a supreme treasure is actually in senior brother's hands. It's really a great creation. Then, I won't stand on ceremony. In terms of the relationship between Duobao and Xianqing, a superior grade connate spiritual treasure was indeed nothing. There was no need for Duobao to stand on ceremony. Chapter 304. Also, this teleportation formation is not right. What I want is a formation that can automatically teleport people over after the formation is activated. It's not a formation that opens a void passageway and allows me to walk through it myself. So, Duobao, do you understand what I mean? Thinking of something, Xianqing, who was about to leave, suddenly stopped and turned to Duobao. After many years of research, the teleportation formation was on the verge of perfection. What Xianqing had to do now was to realize all the functions of the teleportation formation in his memory. If only he was primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. If he had an idea, he could directly turn it into reality. It would not be as troublesome as it was now. No, it was not troublesome now. It was Duobao who was troublesome. I understand. This is not difficult. Duobao nodded and replied energetically. The general structure of the teleportation formation had been completed. What was left was to fill in the details. Of course, it was not difficult, but it was cumbersome and troublesome. Therefore, Xianqing would not do it and left it all to Duobao. Now, Duobao was thinking about the scene of him obtaining merit. No matter how troublesome it was, he would not feel tired. All right, I'll leave the rest to you. I'll go to the side to rest. Waving his hand, Xianqing walked to the side leisurely to rest. He was now comprehending nature and the veins of heaven and earth in order to enhance his understanding of the Tao so that he could break through to a higher realm. On the other side, Duobao was constantly adjusting the teleportation formation so that it could reach what Xianqing said. Just like that, 100 years passed in a hurry. Senior brother, according to your request, it's done. On this day, Duobao ran to Xianqing and said excitedly, It's done? So fast? Then I'll go take a look. With that, Xianqing stood up and walked towards the teleportation formation with Duobao. A clear light flashed, and Xianqing and Duobao disappeared from Penglai Island. When they reappeared, they were already at Golden Turtle Island. Not bad at all. However, there is a drawback to this teleportation formation. I wonder if you've noticed it, Duo Bao. Xianqing nodded and praised first. Then he changed the topic and directly said the drawback of the teleportation formation. Drawback? Senior brother, please enlighten me. Duo Bao cupped his hands and asked seriously. He felt that this teleportation formation was perfect, without any flaws. It could be said that this was his most perfect creation ever since he started cultivating arrays. But if Xianqing said there was, then there must be it in terms of cultivation or formation skills. Xianqing was more than one level higher than him. Since he said that there was, then there must be a flaw in this teleportation array. It was just that his cultivation was too low to notice it. There's no need to be so serious. The flaw isn't in the formation, but in other aspects. You designed this teleportation array very well. Even if I were to do it myself, I wouldn't be able to do it better than you. Seeing how serious Duo Bao was, Xianqing smiled and comforted him. Other aspects? What does senior brother mean? This time Duo Bao was somewhat puzzled. Since there was no problem with the array formation itself, where was the drawback? Look! With that, Xianqing stretched out his hand and grabbed at the teleportation array. Rumbled, the teleportation formation shook violently for a moment. Suddenly, it rose from the ground and turned into a formation map. 9 long banners fell into Xianqing's hands. This teleportation array diagram is a post-celestial treasure. This void streamer was also an acquired cardinal treasure. This teleportation array of yours used a total of 4 post-celestial treasures. If we were to build dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of teleportation arrays, how many post-celestial treasures would we need? Duo Bao, have you ever calculated? Shaking the teleportation array diagram in his hand, Xianqing looked at Duo Bao in amusement. When Jia School was first established, even if it was not as good as the later generations, there were tens of thousands of disciples. But now, there were no less than 1,000 disciples in the sect. In other words, if each disciple of Jia School was equipped with a teleportation array, they would need at least 4,000 post-celestial treasures. Did they really think that post-celestial treasures were cabbages? That was a treasure that was comparable to a connate numinous treasure in terms of power. It was also the main weapon of connate life forms. Connate numinous treasures were the standard of connate god fiends. Only a few connate life forms had connate numinous treasures, and they were all low-grade. Most connate life forms only used post-celestial treasures and post-celestial numinous treasures. It could be seen that post-celestial treasures were not cabbages that could be found everywhere. Of course, with Jia School's foundation, they could still take out more than 4,000 post-celestial treasures. However, it was a little difficult to take out 4,000 space attribute post-celestial treasures. Although 4,000 post-celestial treasures are a lot, with the foundation of Jia School, we can still gather them. That's not a disadvantage, right? After a while, Duo Bao said hesitantly, Of course, Jia School can take them out. However, Duo Bao, have you ever thought about how many factions in the primordial world can take out so many post-celestial treasures? This teleportation array was created to benefit all living beings in the primordial world. If it can't be popularized in the primordial world, what's the use? There are many ways to make it convenient for the disciples of Jia School. Why do you have to put in so much effort to study teleportation arrays? Looking at Duo Bao's indignant expression, Xianqing could not help but emphasize his tone. Benefiting all living beings, enlightening all living beings, or promoting the evolution of heaven and earth. Only such a magnificent feat could bestow merit that could be considered great merit. As for the rest, it was just merit. It was very useful to cultivators below Daluo Jinxian. However, to Daluo Jinxian, it could only be said to be better than nothing. It would not be of much use. Therefore, if the teleportation array could not be popularized in the primordial world, it could only be circulated among the disciples of Jieskul. In that case, the merit obtained by Xianqing and Duobao would undoubtedly be much less, not to mention the ticket to the quasi-saint realm. Even if Duobao wanted to rely on this to prove his Tao to Daluo Jingxian, Xianqing felt that it was a little difficult. I didn't think it through. Please forgive me, senior brother. After hearing Xianqing's words, Duobao immediately thought it through and hurriedly said, Duobao, broaden your horizons. Don't just look at Jieskul. You have to look at the scenery of the primordial world. Daluo Jingxian looks at the primordial world of the universe and sees through the mysteries of the world. If you don't broaden your horizons, how can you prove your Tao to Daluo Jingxian? After thinking for a while, Xianqing warned Duobao. If he wanted to prove his Tao to Daluo Jingxian, his heart had to be big and his horizons had to be wide. He did not care about the gains and losses of the moment. Instead, he had to calculate the gains and losses of the endless future. Without the will to devour the heavens, how could he achieve great achievements? Senior brother, you're right. Duobao bowed and said, this was the experience of his predecessors. It could save him a lot of detours. After this matter is over, go to the East Ocean more and see the scenery outside. Broaden your horizons and increase your knowledge. Don't stay on Golden Ao Island all the time. You can't raise an expert in a greenhouse. Chapter 305. Heaven and Earth were called Tao. It would definitely be beneficial to go out and take a look. Perhaps, as he continued walking, he might even make a breakthrough. Yes, after this matter is over, I will go out and take a look. Even if Xianqing did not say so, Duobao would still go out and explore. How could he see the future without experiencing a storm? Senior brother, what should we do with this teleportation array now? Duobao pointed at the teleportation array in Xianqing's hand and asked, It's okay, look. As he spoke, Xianqing waved his hand and took the void stone from afar. He simplified the teleportation array in front of him and created a new array. This new teleportation array was formed by an array and 9 void banners. Although there were more, these 10 Dharma treasures were all acquired spirit treasures. The cost of refining was undoubtedly reduced by a lot. As long as any connate life form was not too bad, they could still put together a set of teleportation arrays. Duobao, take a look at my teleportation array. What do you think? Xianqing asked as he handed the teleportation array in his hand to Duobao. Yes, this array is indeed much simpler than the previous array. The materials needed to refine it are also much less. That's right, isn't the power of this array a little weaker? After sizing up the array in his hand for a while, Duobao said hesitantly, the array formed by 4 acquired cardinal treasures became an array formed by 10 acquired spirit treasures. Although there was no change in the function, the power would definitely be reduced correspondingly. The previous teleportation array was completely formed by acquired cardinal treasures. It could teleport at will within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles. It was very comfortable. However, this array formed by acquired spirit treasures could only teleport at will within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles. Its power was 10,000 times weaker. This showed the difference between the 2 sets of array formations. Is it too small? I don't think so. Within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles, it is enough for golden immortals and cultivators below to use. As for the Tai Jingxian, they have already cultivated to Tai Jingxian. If they can't gather 4 spatial acquired cardinal treasures, then let them fly slowly by themselves. Xianqing shook his head in the face of Duobao's question and replied nonchalantly, This teleportation array was originally prepared for low-level cultivators. As long as the distance was not too far, it would be fine. Primordial Unity Golden Immortals naturally had better choices. The first set of teleportation arrays was prepared for them. Furthermore, the difference between the two formations was not limited to this. Xianqing's deep scheme was hidden within. The first set of teleportation formations was of extremely high quality and could automatically absorb innate qi. In other words, this set of teleportation arrays did not need to be consumed at all when activated. The owner's own magic power could be self-sufficient. The second set of teleportation arrays was different. Their quality was not high, and they could only be activated with the help of external forces. And this external force could be magic power, or it could be the Khanate creation pill. That's right. Xianqing was forcing them to use the Khanate fortune elixir. Ever since the Khanate creation pill was born, it had always been praised by all living beings in the primordial world. Even Daluo Jinxian praised it. Even the quasi-saints nodded to themselves. Frankly speaking, this was one of the best medicinal pills in the great desolate world. When these words reached Xianqing's ears, he really wanted to curse. Good medicinal pills? Good medicinal pills, my ass. This Khanate creation pill was a supreme treasure pill. What the hell was this? He refined the Khanate creation pill to be used as a currency in the great desolate world, so that it could be easily circulated and obtain great fortune, great merit, and great luck. It was not for them to use it as a medicinal pill to assist in cultivation. Wasn't this going astray? Therefore, Xianqing wanted to reverse the situation and restore the Khanate creation pill to its original use. Therefore, Xianqing wanted to let all living beings in the great desolate world know clearly. Although the Khanate creation pill could assist in cultivation, it was not a medicinal pill, but a currency. Fellow Taoists, it is a currency. Spend it. What's the use of keeping it? Spend it. Spend it as soon as possible. If the old doesn't go, the new won't come. Making money with money is the way of the king. Saving money can't make a fortune. At a certain moment, Xianqing really wanted to transform into an unscrupulous profiteer and shout at the great, desolate world, tempting them to spend the Khanate creation pill as a currency. Now, the opportunity had finally come. He created the teleportation array not only for the welfare of all living beings in the great, desolate world, but also for his own selfish reasons. If you don't want to spend it, then I'll force you to spend it. I don't believe that you can resist not using the teleportation array in front of you. Not only that, this was only the first generation teleportation array. It wouldn't be long before Xianqing would launch the second generation teleportation array. The teleportation distance would undoubtedly be further. At that time, Xianqing would not generously give away the second generation teleportation array for free. Instead, he would use the second generation teleportation array to cover the entire East Sea at his own expense for the living beings of the East Sea to use. Of course, this was not free. If you want to teleport, you can, but give me the Khanate creation pill. The further the teleportation, the higher the level of the Khanate creation pill needed, and the more expensive it would be. I'll force you to spend the Khanate creation pill. As long as the Khanate creation pill was not used as a currency and circulated in the great, desolate world, Xianqing would not be able to obtain the luck of the currency. He would only be able to obtain the luck of the Tao of alchemy. How could Xianqing tolerate only getting 1 out of 2 portions of great luck? How to force the living beings of the East Sea to spend the Khanate creation pill? Xianqing still had a series of plans. In the future, these plans would be imposed on the living beings of the East Sea one by one, making them experience the fear of being dominated by profiteers. Did they really think that Xianqing had been in the East Sea for so long and had nothing to do? He had long been planning in the dark. From this moment on, he would transform into the number 1 profiteer of the great, desolate world, squeezing the wallets of the living beings of the East Sea at all times. Until he was satisfied, the entire East Sea would become Xianqing's testing ground to verify his way of currency. If he succeeded, he would apply the results to the great desolate world. If he failed, it was not a big deal. He could just push it down and start again. There were so many living beings in the East Sea. There was no way to harvest all of them. It was fine as long as they didn't take root. Senior brother, you're right. I was too narrow-minded. Duobao's voice woke Xianqing up from his thoughts. It's okay. You're still young. You just need to experience more. This is the accumulation of experience. Xianqing smiled and comforted him. A few days later, Xianqing and Duobao set up an altar on Goldenao Island and placed the first set of teleportation array diagrams on it. The heavenly path is above. Disciple Xianqing, disciple Duobao. Today, I see that the great desolate world is vast and boundless. The living beings from all over the world do not know the vastness of heaven and earth and the vastness of the universe. Therefore, the two of us took pity on them and created a special formation, which we named the Transportation Formation. It connects the north and south, the east and the west. Chapter 306. Let all living beings in the primordial world communicate with each other. Let all living beings in the primordial world know the vastness of the world and the vastness of the universe. Let all living beings understand each other and eliminate the estrangement. May the heavenly Tao be the judge. Below the altar, Xianqing and Duobao reported to the heavenly Tao with solemn expressions. In the deepest part of the boundless void, in the unknown place, the heavenly Tao reacted. A wisp of golden light descended from the void, illuminating a radius of tens of thousands of miles. It illuminated the surroundings of Goldenao Island. The Xianhuang merit was here. After working for so long, it was finally time to reap the rewards. Vast merit descended from the sky and split into 3 portions. 20% landed on the teleportation array, while the remaining 80% split into 2 and landed on Xianqing and Duobao, respectively. With a thought, Xianqing hid the merit into the auspicious cloud and left it for it to use. Duobao did the same. He put away the merit and did not use it to increase his cultivation level. In the primordial world, very few people who aimed at the great Tao used merit to increase their cultivation level. Even if there were no side effects, they would not use it. After all, in the hearts of the primordial world's great mystical abilities, the cultivation level increased by external forces was not as practical as the cultivation level obtained by one's own hard work. Mingi used merit to increase his cultivation level, but his strength after that was hard to explain in a few words. Before using merit to increase his cultivation level, he could still fight against Tai, but after that he could not even take a few moves. The drawbacks of using merit to increase one's cultivation level could be seen from this. As for the saints, why did they dare to absorb the power of merit to increase their cultivation level? That was because they had the Hongmeng purple qi in their bodies. Apart from that, the great mystical abilities could not figure it out. Like them, the Nuwa of the 3 pure ones did not like to use merit to cultivate. Why did she suddenly use merit to cultivate? In any case, only the saints had such treasures. Outsiders did not have them. Other than helping people become saints, outsiders did not know what other functions it had. Therefore, after the 6 of them obtained the Hongmeng purple qi, if there was any abnormal behavior, the great mystical abilities could not help but associate it with the Hongmeng purple qi. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After a series of tremors, the teleportation array was upgraded from an acquired cardinal treasure to an acquired merit cardinal treasure. Its power was comparable to a connate spirit treasure. The teleportation range had also been expanded to the limit. In an instant, one could travel back and forth within the Eastern Sea. Not bad. Nodding his head, Xianqing waved his sleeve and threw the teleportation formation map behind Golden Turtle Island. Rumble. After a loud bang, the teleportation formation slowly spread out. It absorbed the Kane chi from all directions and formed a huge teleportation formation on Golden Turtle Island. The next time Junior Marshall Brothers come, enter your coordinates into the formation and set up a set of teleportation formations on your respective immortal islands. This teleportation array will be perfect. In that case, it will be much more convenient for Junior Brothers to travel to and from Golden Ao Island. Xian Qing nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the teleportation formation that was still running. Teleportation array? This array formation is interesting. After the teleportation matrix appeared in the eastern heaven in Emperor Shi's palace, with a thought, the innate 8 trigrams appeared in Fushi's mind, channeling the power of the 8 trigrams and deducing the secrets of the universe. All kinds of mysteries appeared in Fushi's eyes, allowing him to understand all the structure of the teleportation matrix in an instant. Not only that, under his powerful strength, the teleportation matrix was constantly breaking down, turning into the most basic runes, rearranging and combining and deducing a new and stronger teleportation matrix. Star-level teleportation matrix, a super teleportation matrix that could cross stars and even galaxies. A world-level teleportation matrix, a teleportation matrix that could cross realms. Needless to say, its power was incomparably powerful. To be able to create the Zhouxing formation, Fushi had already proven his achievements in the Tao of formations. He was definitely at the peak of the Eldritch world and was not inferior to the Tongtian sect leader. With just a glance at the small teleportation matrix, he could naturally completely understand it and innovate to create a stronger teleportation matrix. The 9 Heavens Celestial Lord is indeed extraordinary. The Xian sect has a successor. Fushi praised as he came back to his senses. What kind of ingenious thinking to come up with such an exquisite array formation. This 9 Heavens Celestial Lord Xianqing is really a wonderful person. He has great wisdom. In the Eldritch world, in the Panga Palace, silver-white light bloomed in Dijiang's eyes. Strands of Tao patterns appeared and constantly intertwined in the air, forming an inexplicable array formation and distorting the void. This was the spatial Tao pattern, the manifestation of the Tao of space in the world, carrying all of his mysteries. In the Tao of formations, although Dijiang did not have any achievements and was far inferior to Fushi. However, in the comprehension of the Tao of space, he was the true number 1 in the Eldritch world and the supreme master of space. No one in the Eldritch world could compare to him. He could play with the entire void. Therefore, this kind of array formation that used space had no secrets in his eyes. He could fiddle with and modify it. In just an instant, a teleportation matrix was created out of thin air by Dijiang. Without using any heavenly treasures, it just appeared out of thin air. After another moment, the teleportation matrix suddenly changed. Endless runes appeared and disappeared in it, becoming more profound, more mysterious, and more powerful. Rumble. In the next moment, the void in the major tribes of the Sorcerer tribe suddenly distorted, constantly combining and splitting, forming a huge teleportation matrix. This was the Void Dominator. Under Dijiang's supreme power, the Void changed at his will and automatically formed a teleportation matrix. He did not even need materials and directly created something out of nothing. It was really shocking. The appearance of the teleportation matrix was obviously more useful to the demon race and the Sorcerer tribe than to the Jia school. To the Jia school, the teleportation matrix could only make it more convenient for the disciples of the Jia school to travel and save a lot of time. It was not considered a big use. However, to the Sorcerer tribe and the demon race it was different. The teleportation matrix could strengthen their cohesion and consolidate the rule of the higher-ups. Although there were many Daluo Jinxian in the Sorcerer tribe, it was obvious that they had more ordinary clansmen. It was simply endless. To put it bluntly, the demon race was a huge alliance. There were countless races in it, each with their own divine abilities. Among them, the powerful races lived in the heaven realm and bathed in the light of the stars day and night. As for the weaker races, they lived on the stars in the heavenly cycle. The distance between the heavens and the stars was unimaginably far. The sorcerer tribe had 12 major tribes and countless small and medium-sized tribes all over the primordial world. The distance between them was also extremely far. The Tai Jinxian could still travel freely, but it would be extremely difficult for those clansmen with low realms to go out and walk. In this way, after hundreds of millions of years between clans and tribes, the higher-ups would not matter, but the lower levels would inevitably be estranged. If the heart was scattered, it would be difficult to gather it again. Therefore, the appearance of the teleportation matrix was especially important. Chapter 307. The various races interacted with each other. The various clans understood each other. It allowed the clansmen to interact freely, bond with each other, and improve communication to eliminate the estrangement. It allowed them to unite and maintain the stability of the clan. At the same time, it could maintain the vitality of the clan. Whether or not they could maintain their vitality was related to the rise and fall of a clan. Only a clan that was full of vitality could continuously improve. A clan that could not maintain its vitality would eventually become the dust of history. Although the teleportation array was not powerful, it had an extraordinary meaning. It was enough to bring earth-shattering changes to the primordial world. Its impact was not only limited to the Magi and Demon clans, but also the entire primordial world. As the teleportation array spread in the primordial world, the east and west were connected, and the north and south were connected. The impact of the cultures and specialties of various places would definitely cause the Khanate creation pill to really circulate. It would completely replace bartering, which was an extremely ancient trading method, and become the only currency in the primordial world. If one wanted to be rich, they had to build roads first. Only when transportation was convenient could wealth circulate. Only then could the Khanate creation pill display its value and gather supreme luck for Xianqing. In the blink of an eye, another 1,000 years had passed. Dang, dang, dang. On this day, the immortal gathering bell rang again. The melodious sound of the bell echoed in the entire East Ocean, marking the grand event of the East Ocean. The Grand Master of Heaven's lecture was about to begin. All of a sudden, all living beings gathered and rushed towards Golden Ao Island. The number of people was several times greater than the last time. They almost filled the entire Golden Ao Island. The separation of the three pure ones happened too suddenly. There were no signs. The Grand Master of Heaven moved to the East Ocean even more suddenly. As a result, the living beings on the primordial world did not react in time and missed the last lecture. This time, they calculated the timing and rushed to the East Ocean in advance to wait for the saint's lecture. No, it should be moving to the East Ocean. The Magi and Demon clans were in constant conflict. The atmosphere in the primordial world was getting tenser and tenser. A war could break out at any time. The living beings of the primordial world were not fools. They would not foolishly stay on the ground and wait for death. The overseas region became their choice. The East Ocean was the first in the 4 seas. With the ancestral dragon and the Grand Master of Heaven guarding it, it naturally became their first choice. Fortunately, the East Ocean was big enough. No matter how many living beings came, it could accommodate them all. Screech! Suddenly, a sharp bird cry came from afar. Then, a 5-colored light rapidly approached from the horizon. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at Golden Turtle Island and disappeared into the crowd. That is Kong Xian. Xianqing narrowed his eyes and recognized the identity of the person. It was the crown prince of the Phoenix clan, Kong Xian. I didn't expect him to be here too. Judging from his cultivation, he's still a Tai Jinxian cultivator. I think it's more difficult than I thought to attain the Tao with the innate 5 elements. I reckon that the Phoenix clan can no longer help him. That's why they sent him here, to try his luck. Looking in the direction where Kong Xian disappeared, Xianqing silently speculated. Since they both cultivated the connate 5 elements Tao, Xianqing knew very well how difficult it was to attain the Tao. Blocking the tribulation of Tao was too difficult. In the untainted land, almost no one could attain the primordial 5 elements Tao with their own abilities. If Kong Xian did not have any outstanding performance to attract the attention of the other 4 sacred beasts, it would be impossible for the Phoenix ancestor to succeed alone. Obviously, Kong Xian did not have any outstanding performance. Therefore, he came out to ask for the guidance of the sage to find the way to attain the Tao. However, the connate 5 elements Tao was within reach for Feng Zichen. With the help of the 5 elements sacred beasts and the support of the 5 elements ancestral, which the connate 5 elements Tao belonged to him, it was still useful to form good karma with others. Surprisingly, the Grand Master of Heaven also talked about the mysteries of the connate 5 elements Tao in addition to the Shangqing Great Tao. When the countless living beings on the island heard this, they became intoxicated. Their understanding of the world increased by a little. Master is cherishing talent. Xianqing immediately understood the reason behind the Grand Master of Heaven's abnormality. Kong Xian was the first peacock in the world. The Phoenix ancestor was born from the origin of the connate 5 elements. He was a god fiend that represented the connate 5 elements Tao. He was the top connate god fiend in the untainted land. With such talent, it was inevitable that the Grand Master of Heaven, who had always liked to take in disciples, was moved. However, this had nothing to do with Xianqing. Whether Kong Xian became the Grand Master of Heaven's disciple or not, it would not affect him. If he succeeded, he would just have another junior brother. If he failed, he would not lose anything. Junior brothers, please wait a moment. After the lecture, Xianqing stopped the people of the Jia school who wanted to leave. Greetings, eldest senior brother. May I know why eldest senior brother has stopped us? After bowing to Xianqing, Zhao Gongming took a step forward and asked him on behalf of everyone. Senior brother, there is a set of array formation here. Go and set it up. Let me see if you have slacked off on your cultivation recently. As he spoke, Xianqing waved his hand, and thousands of materials for setting up the teleportation array appeared and fell into everyone's hands. There was no more and no less, just one for each person. This, looking at the materials in their hands, everyone was stunned for a moment. They did not know what Xianqing meant by suddenly doing this. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and set it up. You only have 3 years. Junior brothers, if you have not set up the array formation after 3 years, don't blame me for being ruthless. Go to the East Sea Abyss by yourself and come back after killing 10 ferocious beasts of the same realm. If you can't do it, then don't come back. Seeing that everyone was a little stunned, Xianqing said leisurely. His voice was not loud, but to everyone's ears, it was like a thunderclap. Everyone was so scared that their faces turned pale and they were at a loss. As a disciple of a saint, and with a connate spirit treasure in hand, it was not too difficult to kill 10 ferocious beasts of the same realm. However, that was the East Sea Abyss. The East Sea Abyss was one of the most dangerous places in the untainted land. It was also one of the largest gathering places of ferocious beasts in the untainted land. There was no lack of Daluo Jinxian and even sage-to-be super ferocious beasts inside. That was the untainted land's meat grinder. It was the battlefield that truly belonged to Daluo Jinxian. The Daluo Jinxian of the Dragon Clan were fighting a bloody battle with the Daluo-level ferocious beasts there. If the Tai Jinxian went, it would be good enough if they could survive, let alone kill the ferocious beasts. Danger. Ever since they joined the Jia sect, the danger had nothing to do with them. But today, Xianqing's words made them feel a sense of crisis that they had not felt for a long time. Ah, seeing that Qianqing was not joking, everyone looked at each other for a while. Immediately, they did not dare to delay and picked up the array formation to study it. As for resisting, they did not dare to. Chapter 308. If they didn't resist, they would at most head to the East Ocean abyss. If they resisted, they would be disrespectful to their elders, not to mention Qianqing's cultivation. Just this crime alone was enough to make them face the wrath of the Grand Master of Heaven. At that time, they would face an even more terrifying punishment. Senior brother, isn't this a little too much? Looking at his nervous junior brothers, Duo Bao hesitated for a while and said to Qianqing, "Too much? Apart from being novel, the teleportation array is not a difficult array. As a disciple of the Jia school, you can't set up a teleportation array in 3 years. What does that mean? I think I don't need to say more. You should understand Duo Bao. Array Dao was the foundation of the Jia school. If a teleportation array couldn't be set up in 3 years, it meant that that person didn't have the heart to cultivate. What was the use of keeping such a disciple? Other than leading a bad atmosphere, there was no other use. One day of being a monk, one day of ringing the bell. Qianqing was the eldest senior brother of the Jia school, so he had to bear the responsibility. It was the same for the benefits of his junior brothers, and it was the same for the assessment of his junior brother's standards. How troublesome would it be to refine more than 1,000 teleportation arrays? He could use this opportunity to let the disciples of the Jia school refine them. On one hand, he could test his junior brother's standards. On the other hand, he could complete the refining of more than 1,000 teleportation arrays. It was a good method to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, these junior brothers didn't disappoint Qianqing. They all set up the teleportation arrays within 3 years, especially Zhao Gongming and Yun Xiao. They completed Qianqing's instructions in less than a month, far surpassing the rest. Good. It seems that all of you have not neglected your cultivation all these years. This makes me very gratified. You have to know that on the path of the great Tao, you will fall behind if you don't advance. Now that you have left Goldeneo Island and lost Master's restraint, I was really afraid that you would slack off and delay your cultivation. But now it seems that all of you have performed very well and didn't disappoint Master. Looking at everyone, Qianqing's face was full of smiles. Junior brothers, you have worked hard. I happen to have some divine water of chaos here. I'll give it to you. Duo Bao, take this bottle of divine water of chaos and share it with your junior brothers. As he spoke, Qianqing took out a bottle of divine water of chaos and handed it to Duo Bao. Although the chaotic divine water was not one of the top 10 divine waters of the primordial world, it was not much inferior to them. In fact, it was even slightly superior. It was an extremely precious treasure. This was the divine water created by the Chaos Spring on the 3 Immortal Island. There were a total of 3 pools of mystic clear, and the number was still increasing. Therefore, even though this item was precious, Qianqing didn't feel bad about using it as a reward. Thank you, senior brother. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed to thank him. Junior brother Gongming, junior sister Yun Xiao, junior brother Lu Yu, come forward. After helping everyone up, Qianqing called out the names of 10 people in a row. If there was a punishment, there would be a reward. Qianqing had said that there would be a punishment for failure. Now he wanted to reward those who performed well. He wanted to encourage everyone to work hard and cultivate. As for those 10 people, they were the first 10 people to finish setting up the teleportation formations. The 10 of you are the top 10 in this test. I'll give you these 10 Creation Tao pills as encouragement. I hope that you will work hard in your cultivation in the future and strive to attain the great Tao as soon as possible. Taking out 100 creation Tao pills, Xianqing gave them to Yun Xiao and the others. Thank you, senior brother. After receiving the creation Tao pills, the 10 of them thanked him in unison. Their tone was filled with excitement, to the point that there was a slight tremor in their voices. 10 creation Tao pills were equivalent to 10,000 years of cultivation for a Daluo Jinxian and 10 million years of cultivation for a Tai Jinxian. In other words, refining them would increase their cultivation by 10 million years out of thin air. How could Yun Xiao and the others not be excited? There's no need to be envious. From now on, every 5,000 years, I will conduct an assessment for you. The top 10 will all receive 10 creation Tao pills. Those who fail will reflect on their mistakes for 1,000 years. Those who fail twice in a row, I don't need to say anything more. Go to the East Ocean, abyss yourself. Seeing the envy in everyone's eyes, Xianqing said with a smile. They had been living a comfortable life for too long. If he didn't give them some pressure, how could they be willing to work hard and cultivate? Thinking about it, after this incident, the strength of the Jie sect would increase exponentially. Before long, many Tai Jinxian would be born. Yes, we will follow senior brother's orders. Everyone said in unison. Other than a few disciples, most of the disciples of the Jie sect agreed with the reward and punishment measures. They were all young people and had a competitive heart. Who would be weaker than others? They would definitely fight for the top 10, no, first place. The morale of the disciples soared, and the providence of the Jie sect increased a little. Good. In the Green Turing Palace, the Grand Master of Heaven noticed the changes in the outside world and couldn't help but cheer. However, this way, Xianqing will be at a disadvantage. With that thought in mind, the Grand Master of Heaven took out a jade seal from his chest. Tong, go and give this 4-elephant seal to your senior brother. The Grand Master of Heaven ordered the fire and water child. The treasures to reward the disciples should have been provided by the Grand Master of Heaven. But now, Xianqing had taken on the responsibility and paid out of his own pocket to reward his junior brothers. In this way, he would inevitably be at a disadvantage. However, how could the Grand Master of Heaven sit and watch his beloved disciple suffer? He immediately decided to give Xianqing a superior grade Khanate numinous treasure as compensation. As the name suggested, the 4-elephant seal was a Khanate numinous treasure born from the Khanate 4 elephants Tao. That's right, the 4-elephant seal was one of the 9 Khanate numinous treasures that Feng Zichen had been searching for. It was a Khanate numinous treasure that could preside over the chaos array. In Xianqing's hands, even if others used supreme-grade Khanate numinous treasures to exchange for it, he would not exchange it. Haha, for elephant seal. I really didn't expect that there would be such benefits to integrating the Jie sect. Holding the 4-elephant seal, Xianqing was extremely excited. In this way, he had already found 5 Khanate numinous treasures to preside over the chaos array. There were still 4 more to make the array perfect and become the top array in the primordial world. However, this matter could not be rushed. It still depended on fate. Duobao, come to my place. The matter of the Jie sect had come to an end. It was time to continue with his big plan. Therefore, Xianqing called Duobao over. Duobao, in recent years, I've been thinking about it and feel that the current array is too inconvenient. I want to improve it. Therefore, I specially asked you to come over and help me. I wonder if you're willing? On Penglai Island, Xianqing said with a serious face. Improve the current array? Senior brother is really talented. Ordinary people can't think of it. I'm far inferior. Hearing Xianqing's words, Duobao replied excitedly. Chapter 309. Improving the Array Formation. Just from the name, one could tell that it was a big deal. The impact would definitely be far-reaching. If he succeeded, He would definitely have great merit. Senior brother, how can you teach me? Duo Bao bowed to Xianqing and asked respectfully for advice. He was not a fool. How could he not see that Xianqing was promoting him? Otherwise, Xianqing could have done the improvement of the array formation and the creation of the teleportation array by himself. There was no need to bring a burden like him and share the merit for nothing. Duo Bao did not believe that Xianqing could not do it himself. If even he could do it, how could Xianqing's achievements in the Tao of formations exceed his by so much? It was definitely easy for him to do it, and do it better. Duo Bao still had this bit of self-awareness. Duo Bao, how much do you know about the Tao of refining? Xianqing did not answer Duo Bao's question. Instead, he asked an unrelated question. When I was on Kunlun Mountain, other than daily cultivation, I often asked my two uncle masters for advice. Although I'm not too proficient in the Tao of refining and the Tao of alchemy, I still have some insights. After thinking for a while, Duo Bao replied humbly. However, looking at his smug face, it was obvious that he did not only have some insights, as he said. Xianqing and Duo Bao were undoubtedly lucky. When the Grand Master of Heaven took them in as disciples, there were the only two disciples in the entire Kunlun Mountain. Therefore, the two of them were the disciples of the Grand Master of Heaven, but they were actually taught by the three pure ones. This was a treatment that the disciples who came later could not enjoy. Therefore, they were lucky. It was also because of this that, in addition to having some achievements in the Tao of formations, the two of them also had some achievements in alchemy and refining, especially Xianqing, who could be said to be a great master of 3 Taos. He had already fused 3 Taos and walked out of his own Tao. He could be said to be a great master of a generation. Xianqing had such great achievements. Duo Bao, who was not weaker than him, would obviously not be that bad either. Cut the crap. How much do you know about the Tao of refining? Seeing Duo Bao's humble look, Xianqing could not help but pat him and scold him jokingly. This I can't say either. However, none of the disciples of the Chanism can compare to me in terms of refining weapons. Duo Bao simply could not think of how to describe his own refining realm. He could not help comparing it to the Chan school disciples. He was not bragging. When he was young, Heavenly Lord Yuanshi taught him the way of refining weapons one-on-one. This was a treatment that even the disciples of Chan school could not enjoy. This treatment was exclusive to Duo Bao and Xianqing. Moreover, later generations had already proven that Duo Bao was undoubtedly the most talented disciple among the disciples of the 3 religions. It was only natural that the disciples of Chan school could not compare to him. There was nothing to be surprised about. All right, I got it. Hearing Duo Bao's words, Xianqing was almost unable to estimate his blacksmithing realm. He could barely be considered a first-rate blacksmith. Currently, the cultivation of the disciples of the Chan school was not high. As a result, their achievements in the way of refining weapons were not very strong. They were far inferior to those of the later generations. It could be said to be inferior to the best, but more than enough to be inferior. Duo Bao was stronger than them. In terms of refining weapons, he could naturally be considered top-notch in the primordial world. The 3 pure ones share the same origin. They are one family: alchemy, blacksmithing, and array refinement. These 3 great Tao are, of course, one family. They share the same origin. You cultivate 3 great Taos. I think you should have discovered that there are many similarities between the 3 great Taos. After a while, Xianqing talked about the relationship between the 3 great Taos. Yes, these 3 great Taos are all based on the Khanate runes. They are constantly evolving. It can be considered the same path, but there are 3 different results. However, their essence is still the same. Duo Bao agreed with Xianqing's words. The Khanate runes were the foundation of everything. All the Khanate Taos were constructed from them. The 3 pure ones created their own 3 great Taos through the Khanate runes. However, Due to their different philosophies, the three great Taoists were expressed differently. It's good that you understand. The array formation I'm talking about is related to the way of refining weapons. Nodding, Xianqing told Duobao about his plan. The current array formation has huge restrictions regardless of whether it's connate or postnatal. If you want to activate it, you have to rely on the advantage of a numinous treasure or the power of heaven and earth. It's extremely troublesome to move it. Moreover, the power of the array formation is too great. It can easily envelop a radius of 10,000 miles, 1,000,000 miles, or billions of miles. It causes great damage to the primordial mountains and rivers. Also, when the array formation is set up, it will cause a huge commotion. Unless the enemy takes the initiative to enter the array formation, it will be very difficult to force the enemy into the array formation. In this way, the array formation will lose its effect. Then what's the use of it? These were the drawbacks of the current array formation. Xianqing had spent several years concluding them. Now he told Duobao one by one. Just as Senior Brother said, most array formations can only passively defend and can't take the initiative to attack. This is indeed a problem. Duobao went through the array formation he had mastered in his mind and realized that it was indeed the same as what Xianqing had said. He could not help but agree. Therefore, I want you to imitate the method of refining weapons and refine the array formation into a Dharma treasure. There's no need for the main array formation. As long as you pour in Dharma power or put in a creation pill, you can activate it. In this way, the array formation will become similar to a Dharma treasure. It will undoubtedly be more convenient and easier to control. Most of the drawbacks that I mentioned just now can also be solved. Seeing Duobao frowning and thinking, Xianqing waited for a while before telling him the solution. That's right. Xianqing was talking about the array disk of the future. It could be activated with only spirit stones. In the primordial world, there were no spirit stones. There were only connate creation pills. According to Xianqing's plan, the only way to fully activate the array disk's power was to use the connate creation pill. He did not believe that with the array disk, the primordial world's living beings could still endure not using the connate creation pill. This was the second part of Xianqing's plan to stimulate the consumption of the primordial world's living beings. Refining the array formation into a Dharma treasure is a good idea. But will this work? Although he felt that Xianqing's words made sense, Duobao still seemed a little hesitant. Refining the array formation into a Dharma treasure simply subverted his understanding. This idea was too unbelievable. He really did not know how Xianqing's brain worked. He could actually think of such a method. How do you know if it works if you don't try? Anyway, you have nothing to do. Just try a little more here. Even if you fail, it doesn't matter. Just take it as accumulating experience. Xianqing expressed his understanding of Duobao's hesitation. After all, his idea was indeed too shocking. He could guarantee that this method would definitely succeed. But he could not say it to Duobao. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.